All right. Looks like we're good to go here, friendos. Okay. All right, I think we're working here. Nice. Yeah, looks like we're good. What's up, guys? My name is Gabriel Quinn. I am a concept artist, illustrator, visdev guy, world building guy, all the above. And today we're doing some art in Procreate. I thought it'd be fun to kind of break our normal scheduled programming of working in Photoshop and take a little dive into doing some work in Procreate. So I have it here pulled up, and I've got a piece that I was working on a while ago here, which is pretty cool. I think it's pretty darn sweet, if you ask me. Um, yeah, I think I was working on some line art back when I stopped working on this piece. So this was a while ago. But, we talk about world building a lot here. And I think people have a lot of questions on, what tools to use, what software to use. That usually comes up a lot. But I want to kind of show you today that the tools do actually impact the way that you think and the way that you draw. It's not, some people like to sell the idea that, none of it matters. It's all about process. It's all about this, all about that. But the software affects your process. So it's good to know how different pieces of software, brushes, all that stuff kind of like pushes you in certain directions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today a little bit. Also, just answering questions, um, as well as letting all the patrons know that we're live. I forgot to do that. I always forget to do that. It should be automatic. I think I talked about this last time, how I set up a bot to do the thing, and oh, it's working. Nice. Awesome. Okay, well, it worked this time. That's cool. Okay. Yeah, the thumbnail was very hastily done, so sorry if the thumbnail's a little bit scuffed, but had to do it super fast before I started streaming. Man, there's so many times I go to stream and the thumbnail is just like the barrier, It's like, oh, I don't have a thumbnail, but I don't want to make one. So this was an old file that I was working on a while ago. I'm just gonna talk about what we're looking at here. We've got kind of this roguish caped character with this kind of cool bird thing here. Also, just so you guys know, I can't fit the whole Procreate thing in here. It's like a weird aspect ratio. It looks like this. So we have it kind of push in a little bit more. So apologies if I like zoom and something is cut off or something like that. But yeah, this was a file that I was working on a while ago. Let's see here. I can show you some of the stuff we were working on before. So I have a bunch of sketches in this one, but I was working on one that I thought was, looking back at it, I think it's so sweet. So let's look here. We have this sketch of this big creature with this kind of backpack guy walking around. And I actually went to a finish with this one. I totally forgot I even did this. This is the problem when, you forget to post your work. It's so easy to forget to post your work. So I did this version, which I thought was it's so cute. I think, did I do more? Yeah, I think I did some liquify and rework some of the colors, and yeah, change some of the gesture stuff on the very end here. But even just that first version, this version, I think it's so great. I love the vibe here. I love the style. I think this was when I was trying to really nail down like a solid style that was gonna work for me. So that was kind of, I think, like my searching here at this point when I was working on this. And then later on I did some more. So, oh yeah, always good to check your values. So I did some kind of black and white value checks here. Always good to do. But then I went on to develop some of the other sketches I was working on. So I had this cool sketch, which is like this cloaked character and this bird. I've spoken before about how I work really loose with the sketch, and that for me works really well. And here's another example of that where I'm really focused on just making sure I get all the big shapes and the energy down. The energy is the most important part for me. And then working on top of this, I started to put down some line art that was kind of like working with the shapes essentially. So we can work a little bit more on this going forward. But I have some other sketches too, so I'll show those as well because I think it's kind of cool. So I have this kind of sleepy cat character. Don't really remember what I was doing with this. I also have, oh yeah, this one's kind of cool. This like big kind of tigery character with this, sword warrior here. Again, very gestural, very funky, very funky. And then here's some of the other ones for the bird. I think when I was figuring out the gesture for the bird, yeah, this was one version, which I don't hate the kind of like standing on the tall legs and all that stuff. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah. So we can do some line art today and then maybe even get to some color, we'll see. We will see. So last time we streamed, we were focusing on my Sky Pirate IP, which is pretty cool. Today we're focusing on more of kind of like this very loose fantasy project. I have some very loose kind of fantasy ideas that are all sort of in the same kind of aesthetic world that I want to keep developing. I've got no hard and fast rules on it yet. Still very much an open project. So we'll see kind of how that continues. But for now, it's just kind of very, very loose. I have some kind of cool comic concepts for it, which, are pretty slow to develop, But yeah, lately, I mean, not lately, but, a while ago, I was really inspired by, I don't know if you guys know Jake Wyatt's comic Necropolis, but I was really inspired by that comic. I think it was a really fantastic balance of having a just absolutely gorgeous aesthetic and also being simple. And I think for me personally, I want to focus more on being simple. Sorry if I'm like moving this thing around a lot. It's something I do when I draw. I'll try to do it less because it's probably like on a big screen. It's probably very like, motion sickness inducing or something. I'll have to be a little more careful with it. But yeah, for a piece like this, I just love to take my time and really get in here with these shapes. Yeah. Also, feel free to say hi in the chat, ask any questions you'd like. We're just chilling today. We're just vibing. Last time I streamed, I think it was like, it was like midnight Eastern time. So I was able to talk to all of like my Australian audience, which was really cool. Really nice to hear from you guys. If you guys are watching back the VOD, I'm sending you good vibes in Australia and East Asia and that location. Mia B says, "This looks fantastic. Wow. Hey, thanks, Mia. Thanks for hopping in the chat. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well today." So the idea for this world, if we're going to call it a world, if we're going to start using that kind of terminology with this, the idea is that I think there's some kind of connection between these human characters and these like beasts. Obviously, there's like a connection, obviously. But I'm wondering if it's like this sort of like spiritual connection or just like a more literal connection, like the people just tamed the beast. Like I don't know where I want to land with it. It's still something that I'm kind of sort of figuring out, I guess. So that's kind of something that I've been thinking through as time continues. One thing I've been working on, I guess, can I show? Is it on? I don't even know if it's on this computer. I wonder if I could show. Yeah, let's check really quickly if we have it available here. Yeah, okay, cool. I did this, here, we'll open Photoshop briefly. This one? Oh, we'll show that in a sec. Yeah, there we go. We'll open I mean, I just said we weren't going to open Photoshop, and yet here we are. Let's open Photoshop for a second. how strange. I wonder why it's so big all of a sudden. Yeah, we'll just show it like this for now. So I've got this cool pitch concept for a comic called Son of No One. This is kind of like I think I talked about it a little bit on a past stream. But this is sort of the key image for this world, you know? And I'm imagining this kid has formed like a spirit bond with like the Monkey King in the jungle. So he's got this like really awesome swagger and bravado, you know? And the idea that I had is sort of like maybe he tricks the Monkey King or he survives the riddle or there's some kind of winning of approval or some kind of overcoming in this story where this kid kind of gains the favor of this Monkey King. And I feel like it's like a spiritual thing where then he sort of becomes the Monkey King's champion in a way. So in that same way, thinking about these kind of characters and these ideas, I'm thinking maybe these kind of creatures are choosing these people like as their champions, so they must be of some importance. So this bird is probably like an important kind of spirit bird in some way. We can kind of give it a bit more personality by giving it pupils here if we want to. I pulled it up very, very briefly, so I'll just show it kind of quickly, which is that I'm doing a world building with costume design course in November of this year. So it's quite a few months away, but I wanted to start, you know, kind of like teasing it or I guess, I guess mini announcing it here. So if you want more information on the course, definitely go to the link in the description where you can read through the whole course schedule and all of that stuff. It's a 4-week course, super in-depth, world building with costume design, super cool. Definitely check it out. In terms of tiers, there's an early bird tier, which there's already a few gone. So it's $50 off the standard admission. So if you want to sign up now for the November course, the live course, definitely check it out because there's a little incentive to sign up early. And then there's the standard admission, the feedback tier, where you get a lot of in-depth feedback, and then there's an overkill mentorship tier, but definitely not for everybody. But yeah, definitely check out the November course because it's going to be cool. We're going through a lot of world building with costumes specifically, which is my primary method of world building. So I think it's a really cool thing. Yeah, so we'll get that out of the way. Mini plug there. Links in the description. Definitely check it out. Okay. Back to the drawing here. All right. Yo, Seth, what's up? We got Sunny. What's up, Sunny? And says, Gabriel, I kid you not. Before the live, I sensed you were live, and I came on YouTube, and here you are. This keeps happening, dude. How fantastic. So cool. Abel Dopazo says, hey, looks sick. Amazing colors. Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, the Son of No One cover. Man, I'm so excited about that. I was shopping the idea around New York Comic Con last year, and I got some really great receptivity from some of the publishers out there. A lot of them were kind of like, definitely reach out. And I was like, yeah, I hope you remember me. And they'll like, they said, I'll remember that. I'll remember that cover, you know, for sure. So that'll be cool. All right. Did I just, yeah, okay, here we go. Nice. All right. Yeah, so I guess we'll just keep doing some line art here. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea behind these sort of like spirit animals and their sort of their champions, their chosen vessels, or I don't know. There's some kind of like cool thing there, so we'll see how it continues. But I'm really excited by the idea, which is always a good thing. And I'm curious to see how it develops. So I'm not used to working on Procreate on stream. I'm sure to you guys it looks like I'm just looking straight down, so because the Procreate window is so low. Usually when I work on Procreate, I'm in like a cafe somewhere and you know, I have it a little bit closer to myself, so it's interesting being a bit more zoomed out, looking from kind of far away, and you know, definitely has more of a sketchbook feel. Do any of you guys use Procreate when you're designing stuff, or are you primarily like Clip Studio, Photoshop users? When I was in school for art, I became a Procreate only artist. I trained really hard. I got over that like challenging intermediate phase with Procreate where it's just really hard to get it to do what you want it to do. And I was able to get to a really nice spot where the things I was making I was like really happy with, you know? It was I was feeling really good about it. But when I started doing more concept for clients, the pressure to switch to Photoshop kind of took over because for me, I think that I didn't have enough experience to really like lay down the law with myself and say like this is my process, these are my outcomes. You know, it was much more of a loose process for me where it was kind of like my style shifted a lot based on the project I was working on, which is going to happen to you, you know, when you do a lot of client work, you know, you're going to have to adapt to the project. But for instance, someone like Nicholas Cole, I'm trying to, you know, have a clear deliverable. Like Nicholas Cole has a really, really clear deliverable. So for me, you know, not having as clear of a deliverable, I found myself jumping to Photoshop, jumping back to Procreate. I've done like all my Lorcana cards in Procreate just because I don't know why, I just feel like I have to. Which I wish I could show you the process for those, but unfortunately I'm not allowed, so I can't show you my Lorcana cards. So sad. Which is sad because the guys for Wizards of the Coast, the Magic the Gathering illustrators, I think they can show their process, but people from on the Disney thing, they can't, unfortunately. More and more frustrations every day. All right. Seth says, I've been mostly Procreate for a while, trying to branch out to other programs now. True, true. Abel says, haven't gotten over that Procreate hump yet, but when I need a brush feel over layer management, I go for it for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mia says Lorcana does feel like a Procreate software team. It's very soft. Yeah, yeah. It just like feels right. I don't know why. Seth says, yeah, definitely seen Magic Card process stuff around. Yeah, they really it's easy for them. Sunny says, I originally used Procreate for digital art most of the time, but I switched to Photoshop. My neck has thanked me tremendously, but I switch to Procreate sometimes to sketch and concept a little bit. Yeah, it's like it's hard to know what to do, hard to know what's best. For me, whenever I concept and Procreate, because I like okay, so I have this thought, right? Where there's kind of, you know, art as like a lofty end goal, you know, like and I would consider this much more in alignment with like, you know, illustration, let's say. And this I would think about, you know, like J.C. Leyendecker, Alphonse Mucha, you know, like really gorgeous, gorgeous work. But the outcome itself is like this kind of gorgeous outcome, but it represents an idea and a concept, you know, it really does. When I think about something like concept art, you know, I think about kind of a presentation of an idea which is drawn well, but it's not necessarily like an illustration. It's more just like a very well painted asset or something. So I have this weird feeling sometimes when I'm concepting that I can't have this concept just be a gorgeous illustration for some reason. I don't know why. It's like a mental block or something. Like I have this association with concept art that it's just this loose, fast, and, you know, touch and go thing. But when I work in Procreate, I find myself leaning more towards the illustrative realm of like, you know, presenting or portraying characters. So yeah, I find myself with Procreate being much more I don't know, engaging in more of the artistry side of presenting my concepts or illustrating my concepts. It becomes a little bit more graphic, a little bit more, yeah, just illustrative, I think, is the only word to use here, to be honest. All right. So an instant like red flag I see in this design, because whenever you work on something and you kind of have to come back to it, I think this area here, unfortunately, is just really suffering from a lack of clarity. So let's see what we can do about that. I think for now, let's just go ahead and take it to the chopping block and just kind of get rid of it. Let's just merge these two and work on it as a single asset. So in the original sketch, you can see it was much thinner, and I think that actually works for the design. I think how I had it before, it just was losing a little bit of that silhouette. So what I want to do here is I think just focus on continuing this line down, because when you're designing and you're going a little bit more stylized, you can afford to be a little bit pushed with the proportions. You don't have to be 100% exact when you know that you're going for like a more of a push style, which this definitely is. I think I want to mirror the idea of these kind of I love the talons of birds and predatory birds, and I love how they have that, like, you know, kind of patterned ribbing, you know, almost scales but not quite, but still kind of scales like along the legs. Very dinosaur-esque, very paleo core. I think I want to echo that by hinting at like the ankles are kind of wrapped with something. And then I think I want to be super minimal and not draw attention to the feet. Sometimes the shoes are a really great way to show a lot about the character, but sometimes it can take away a little bit from the attention of the rest of the piece. And I think with this character, we want to just focus on the silhouette more than the kind of facts of the shoes, as it were. So I'm just going to basically simplify that down to just simple silhouette. And if we follow the lines down here and here, you know, it's a much more clean, yeah, much more clean silhouette. So we can go back and look at how it was before. Yeah, so very clunky, a lot of breaks in the lines, you know, a lot of lost energy. If we go back to where we're at now, a lot more of the continued flow and I think better positioning. The only thing now is that the plumb line is a little bit off. So the center of gravity with the character is potentially a little too far forward. So that's a consideration that I don't know how much we care about it, to be honest. I don't know how much we care about it. Also, sorry if my voice is a little bit rough today. I think I'm dehydrated and I'm I started the day off with a latte, which I still have here in my hand, so dairy plus dehydration is not a very clear voice, I suppose. All right. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I just hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's having a really great day. I hope everybody is having fun with art in their lives, having a good time with it. It's so easy to psych yourself out of just the fun of drawing and the fun of designing and the fun of exploring. We definitely want to make sure that we're giving ourselves the opportunity to constantly remember just how fun drawing is, because it is just so fun. Very easy to start seeing drawing as an enemy, you know, even though we love it. All right, this is starting to feel pretty good. I like this a lot. I think humanizing the bird with some big eyes, you know, it I don't know how I feel about it. I like it. I think that's enough. Me liking it is enough. Let's just keep moving. I don't have to reason too much into it, you know? Let's move one of the talons a little bit more into the foreground here. I wonder if we could even put one of the claws like behind, like she's sort of standing almost in between the talons. That feels kind of cool. I actually like that. Yeah, let's do that. Oh man, another reason why I think Procreate can sometimes feel a little bit rough is the transform tool, man. The transform tool, I feel like I get done dirty with the transform tool all the time. Like I'll move something. Let's see if we lost a lot of detail. Did we? All right, not so bad. Not so bad. It's okay. Yeah. Sometimes it really feels like you lose a ton of the quality when you do the transform. But they've done a good job improving the transform tool. They've done a good job with that stuff. Man, it came up recently in a few conversations. We were talking about Procreate, and we were talking about Procreate Dreams, and how Dreams felt like just such a, I don't know. To me, this is very melodramatic, and I understand that this isn't like a good mindset per se, but to me, it felt like such a betrayal because all the marketing and everything was getting me so hyped for this new animation app. Oh, this new animation app is going to be amazing. And I was talking with the Procreate guys at Lightbox, every year being like, guys, just make an app that's just animation and make an app that's just animation. Please, 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 please. Because I love animation. Animation is so fun. It's one of my, like, if I couldn't do concept and all that stuff, I would probably really enjoy animation. I would enjoy animation if it actually was like a legit career. I think that would be cool. Um, but I man the Procreate Dreams, it just felt like such a betrayal because they got you so hyped. It's one thing if they were like, "Hey guys, releasing a new app. We hope you guys like it. It's a really cool compositing tool." And you can take your animations from Procreate and drop them in, and you can create some cool stuff, and you can move assets around and look at the timeline. Timeline's cool because honestly, Procreate Dreams is one of the most innovative and powerful and optimized compositing apps ever made. It's actually a miraculous thing that they made, but it's not an animation app. And they marketed it as if it was an animation app, and it just broke my heart. I opened Dreams and I saw that they didn't have the any kind of like legit brush engine, and they didn't have the lasso tool, which is like a big drama. They didn't have the lasso tool. That's like a huge thing. Another thing to acknowledge with Dreams is that it's a whole new. They had to build it from scratch. It wasn't um it wasn't just piggybacking off of the Procreate code. They didn't build on that. It's completely from scratch. So apparently the lasso tool would have just like broken it, and it just wasn't working. They just couldn't get it to work. It was like a real, strange situation. So I understand that, you couldn't really, yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that, but then honestly, just push your release, man. Just get it working, get the lasso tool working, and push your release. But I don't know, maybe they needed the sales numbers or something like that. But again, it wouldn't have felt like a betrayal if they hadn't gotten me so hyped for an animation app. Because one thing is that with Procreate, it's so optimized for illustration that they have these really intense layer limits. And so, one thing that would have been fantastic with Dreams is that you would have had more leeway with the layer limits, in that you could actually like script out full timelines. Like you should have, you could be able to really make some headway, because if you're just animating in Procreate, it just feels so limited. You're having to do like a new file for every single shot, every single movement, every single key. It's like a new file, a new file. You can't, scrub it all together. You can't watch it all together. It's like very frustrating, very, very frustrating. So I felt very betrayed. It put like kind of a sour taste in my mouth just for the company in general. But I know they're all really amazing guys, and they've treated my friends very well, which is good. So like, I think that I really believe in them, and I want them to do really well. But it definitely, like, honestly, it kind of turned me off from using Procreate as well, because I just felt so betrayed. And again, I know it's very melodramatic, but I was like, man, this is just so frustrating. And now I don't, it's like the trust is gone. If they release a new application, I'm not getting it. And I think that I don't know. I think they're I don't know, man. It's rough. See what you guys said. Yeah, it was a lackluster launch. So excited for Dreams. Felt incomplete to be an animation app. Yeah, that's the problem is that it just isn't an animation app. It's a compositing app. It's just not an animation app, unfortunately. Aki says the lasso tool seems like it would be a pain to code, but also so many programs have already done it. It's not even it's like not about, like how hard it is or the comparing it to other software. It's necessary. Lasso tool is necessary if you're going to be doing anything in animation, because so much of animation is you're moving not everything around at once, but you're moving specific assets around. And it's like, yeah, it's anyway. Mia says, "Oh yeah, I thought it was an animation app. Wow, that's my 10 bucks." Yeah, that's the thing. They got everybody's money and they just were very disingenuous in my opinion about what the application could actually do. So it's just unfortunate. But I sorry, I don't want to just come on here and complain, we're you guys got to ask me more questions about world building and design so I don't keep talking about software and getting pissed at software. Let's see. Dreams doesn't have a lasso tool. Yeah, no, exactly. Derpic Deep says Dreams doesn't have a lasso tool. Yeah, yeah. It's so rough. Really, really rough. All right. Someone said something about the concept. Sunny said, "Do the animal patrons give the person some abilities, or is it more of a protector in a way?" So I think it's both. I think it's probably like, like life or death situation. They might get the whole, avatar possession kind of vibe where they go like beast mode. We're going beast mode, guys, or something like that. But I do think that there's some cool elements that I want to implement with the some kind of magical ability, because I'm trying to think about these characters almost like they're almost like kind of like demigods, like they're these spiritual beings, and the characters who like win their favor are sort of like a half bloods kind of vibe where they are very powerful, like this one who has power from this like owl raven, like this bird spirit. I'm imagining they have some really cool abilities where, maybe they have like this like gale of wind where, people start to like go to attack them, but they just don't want to deal with them. So like they just send a gale of wind and it just like they just get blown away, or they can't even progress, something like kind of really cool, kind of like really like stone cold, ice cold, vibe where it's like be gone with you, kind of vibe. That's the kind of idea. And the kid, the whole, son of no one, that kid, I'm imagining, oh man, when they like crack you with a punch or something, it's like you feel it, you get sent to the stratosphere kind of vibe where I'm thinking like Luffy, vibe from One Piece kind of energy where you've just got those like really bombastic, wild punches and action sequences, but without all the stretchy mode, I assume. Okay. I gotta remember to stop moving this canvas. I'm sure I'm giving you guys like some kind of motion sickness or something. All right, let's just finish drawing this hair. I think I've been going back and forth on this for so much time. Um, Hard to be decisive with shapes sometimes, I'll tell you. I think we want to give a cool hair shape. We got some nice senses of like flow coming in, maybe. Very simple. Yeah. All right, we're getting somewhere now. Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's looking good. This line's probably a little redundant, I think. Yeah, do you guys find you have trouble with line art sometimes when you're working from like rough sketch or you're doing an idea? Do you guys find like a bit of a challenge with line art? I feel like it took me a long time to get a sense for what to simplify down and what to really go into detail with when it came to line. That I think was one of the most hard fought skills for me when I was advancing my artistic skills and growing my capacity to do this work. I think that was like a really, really rough thing. I don't know if you guys relate to that in any way, but that was a major element of my development when I was younger, really trying to conquer that strange balance of clarity versus kind of over explaining a concept, making it cluttered with too much detail. Something I see a lot more in my uh, older work, even stuff from like just a few years ago, which I was very confident about at the time. Looking back at that work and kind of seeing like, huh, I was very overly descriptive of this at the time, and I thought it was really essential that I was overly descriptive, but now I just feel like it wasn't quite it, you know? All right, let's see here. Okay, nice. Man, I stopped getting coffee out, which is very popular these days. But today, the first day my girlfriend's back from seeing her family before she starts medical school. Oh man, so good to see her. But I took her out for a little coffee this morning, which was nice. So I got to have my little coffee. It's nice when it's a treat, you know? Doesn't feel nice when you feel like you just have to keep getting coffee. All right, all right. Let's see. Sonny says, so like Da Vinci could have been spotted by some bird that thought his built wings were super cool or something. Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, maybe. That'd be cool. Aki says, what made you pick an owl? Do you just like owls? Or is there something about owls that made you pick them over any other bird? Honestly, I'm a very intuitive, shape focused designer. So when I was going for the sketch, the owl felt correct to me. But it's not really an owl. It's like a half owl, you know, because it's got more of a strange kind of body. It's kind of like a weird, strange pseudo owl raven. So it's kind of like that weird middle ground, I guess. But I picked it because the shapes felt correct and it felt cool. Really, I liked the framing of the face that owls have, and I think that was a shape that I prioritized here. But I could have picked, you know, many other birds, I think, for instance. Who knows? Seth says I'm not good at line art. Haha. Oh, Seth. I think you'd adapt well if you actually really put yourself through the ringer and tried. I think you'd adapt really well. He says, "Yeah, I clean up the sketch and just skip line art. I think I can get away with it more in concepts." Well, yeah, that's another thing with concept art though. That's kind of it can sort of force a plateau, which is that you stop getting good at just making really good art because you're just kind of in this weird loose plateau of sort of knowing how to draw. Um, which is, you know, if you ever want to pivot out of concept art, it'll make it harder because you'll have to learn how to actually really clean up your stuff. Connor Merchant says, I'm new to this world building of yours, but what does the magic look like? Written, vocal, etc.? Or how does it affect their culture slash environment? Kind of a big question. So my bad. Hey, great question, Connor Marchant. I will answer your question, but I will first catch up with the chat. Seth says, I've spent so much more time on learning to develop from form to render things and never developed my line art skills. So line art, oh man, honestly, I might do a line art video because this has come up so many times in my classes that I think it's worth probably just making a video about. But when you're drawing line art, if you can remember 3 things that you're communicating, it just makes line art a million times easier. I'll do like a super, super quick demo right now so you get what I mean. But I might do an expanded video in the future, let's say. Aki says I have a hard time using line weights. Yeah, line weight's hard. It's really hard. But if I'm doing line art and not shading the main piece, the line weight is pretty essential. Yeah, that's true. Line weight's pretty essential for pulling focus, making shapes be clear, and all of that stuff. 100%. Seth says, I usually spend like an hour or 2 at coffee shop doing art before work in the mornings. Oh, heck yeah, brother. Frog Teeth says, can I ask what brushes you use? Sorry if you've answered before. Oh, Frog Teeth. What a classic. What an absolute classic. Let's go face cam. I will tell you what brushes I use. I use the default brushes in Procreate. I love the default brushes. They're great. They're fantastic. They're fabulous. I would highly recommend them. Default brushes, baby. All right, hopping back in. Sunny says, I also just clean it up, haha, but I am leaning more towards painting, so it doesn't have to be perfect before I moved on to color. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys saw my process on my last stream with the piece where I painted the airship and the clouds and all that stuff. Man, that piece came out so nice. Actually, I did some edits on it. Do you guys want to see? Let's look. Let's pull it up really quick. Because I'm really happy with the direction it went. Let's pull it up here. Bang, bang, bang. Nope, different piece. Different piece. Yeah, here we go. All right. Where are we? OBS. Work. Yeah. Oh, dude, it looks so cool. Look at this. Yeah, let's take my face cam off really quick and go full screen or something. Check that out. Yeah, man, I'm really happy with how this turned out. So this was, the process for this was, I don't think I did any sketch at all. I think I went straight to painting. Let's see. I think I have the process just right here. Let's take a look. Yeah, so I started with this, just brush strokes. You can see I worked with just a really loose base of just like random color, blocked in some heavy darks, and then I did a shadow multiply layer, and I just kind of painted that in with the layer mask to kind of create some shadow shapes. Then I did some color temperature stuff, I think, right? I believe. Yeah, added in some kind of pinks and stuff, pushed the shapes around a little bit, and then I went for some brighter brights in some areas. And then from there, I think I just kind of kept pushing until we got a nice result. I definitely pushed the clouds a lot into more of like a cloud feel. It's so funny. I showed my grandmother the state of the clouds, and she went like, "Oh, these don't look like clouds." And I was like, "Oh no, not the grandma roast." So I took it a bit further. It's super easy to forget, when you're an artist, that you're just making art for other artists, that they kind of just sort of like, other artists forgive so much. Artists just love shapes and colors. They don't really care about clarity as much. But, you got to remember there are normies out there, man. But this piece was no sketch, no line art. So yeah, I think if you're going straight to painting and you're just kind of blocking stuff in, then absolutely you can just kind of work from color. Oh yeah, here's where it was before. This was kind of where it was before. So, which I do like the graphic. I like the read of this, really, really nice. But this definitely has more of the cloud feel. But I do like the values here, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Hard to know when you're working on stuff like this. All right, let's jump back to Procreate. For a stream about Procreate, I sure am talking about showing Photoshop a lot. All right, let's keep going here. Lack says hello. Hello, Lack. Frog T says, thank you so much. I'm new to Procreate, so I wanted to know if there were any brushes I should download first. No more procrastinating with searching for brushes for me. Yeah, if you are going to get brushes, I highly recommend Max Packs. Max Packs is the guy. Max Ulichny. Connor says, that's gorgeous. You're gorgeous, Connor. Sunny says, oh, wow. That's so soft and fluffy. Seth says, makes me want to do an airship painting. Dude, it's contagious, baby. I've infected you with my airship desire. No, not the grandma roast. So true. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, the grandma really let me had it for sure. Lax says, what's your writing process for world building and designing? Oh, wouldn't you like to know? Yeah, I'll tell you. That's fine. Grandma said one of my first renders was scary. True. True. Okay, let's run it back. We had some questions to answer. So one was talking about the magic system, which personally I don't know. The magic system I don't know for these characters yet. I am of the belief I like a magic system that's very loose, and I like the kind of soft magic system. I don't really like. I mean, like, there's some virtue to like the Brandon Sanderson vibe of like, this is the magic system. It runs on this and it's powered by this. And I think like for me, I enjoy a lot of the kind of more experimental. Oh man, sorry, I read the chat. That's so funny. And said, "Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?" Dude, that's the best clip on the internet. That got me. That's so funny. Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy? Dude, that clip is legendary. And then the guy is like, "Where are your parents?" He gets pissed. Ah, oh, man, I love when people get owned by like young people and they just don't know what to do. They're like, where are your parents? You know, like what are they gonna do? Anyway, going back to what I was saying. The yeah, the magic system right now is super loose. I imagine it's very like more, yeah, more along the line. What's a good comparative thing? Okay, here's the thing. I like a soft magic system, but I don't like Scarlet Witch vibe from Marvel, where it's just like, hey, my power is red. My power is whatever the script wants it to be, and it's like red mist. That's my power. It's the color red apparently, and I do this all the time. You know, that's not my jam. I think that's a little bit lazy and frustrating. But I think that the magic here, it's like limited where you're not like crazy insanely powerful, but you definitely have like an edge, you know, that's more along the lines of the kind of like spirit creature that you're aligned with or assigned to. So this character with the bird, you know, is probably very silent and a lot of like flow vibes. And I had this idea of like the wind, you know, that's kind of a cool thing that I'm thinking about for this. But also they probably have some kind of like advantage at night. Maybe they're one with the shadow, one with the breeze or the wind, you know, something like that, where there's some kind of cool alignment where it doesn't just give you like an automatic win, but it kind of like pushes the thing forward, you know? And then I want to talk about line art briefly because I think it's really worth talking about. But we got the chat's popping off. I can't keep up. Let's go. Sunny says, did you know that was his son? Fun fact. Really? No way. That's amazing. That makes it so much better. Lack says, in my literature class, our professor explained that the difference between fantasy and high fantasy. Basically, in high fantasy, magic is just accepted as the norm, unlike fantasy that requires explanation. Huh, interesting. That's an interesting way of explaining it. Aki says, what medium is your story going to be told in? I'm working on a world building for a novel that will have some illustrations in it, and I'm finding that I need about as much concept art as you do. Yeah, it's, you know, it's gonna, yeah, you're gonna require a lot of work, man, for sure. I think a good inspiration for you to look at is Gregory Manches, Above the Timberline. He did an illustrated novel and he did a lot of development work for it, and it's just good to look at his process. There's some like videos as well online of his process. In terms of my world building stuff, buddy, I've got no clue, man. I just love the idea so much that I'm just constantly making ideas. Resolving the ideas, that's a whole other thing. I think that like right now in my life, I'm just really about, you know, the premise of the idea. I think resolving the ideas is going to be something that starts to happen, you know, in like the next few years or maybe in my 30s or something, where I'm more focused on pushing to that stage of my life where I'm like actually making the art book or the comic or the game or the something like that. But right now, I'm just really trying to master the art of building worlds. That's like my main jam. So the medium, this one probably will live as a comic, I'm assuming, just because it's kind of set up to be told in that way, where you get some really fantastic art pages, and just kind of cool. Comics are very efficient, so this one's probably going to be a comic. But the one I was talking about on my last stream, the kind of Sky Pirate one, where we've got this kind of vibe, this one is going to be a game. This one's definitely going to be a game for sure. So it's tough to know, what medium your thing is going to live in, what it's going to look like, and all of that good stuff. It's tough to know. But all my projects apparently want to live in different mediums. I just love story so much that I'm just, this is my jam. Connor says there's a love for both types of magic systems. I'm a nerd for both. Soft magic brings so much whimsy. Yeah, it's true. Soft magic is cool. I like it a lot. But yeah, the more kind of hard magic systems, I think they're cool too. I think I'll probably design something more limited and specific, like maybe in the future when I want to do something more grounded and on a smaller scale. I feel like that works well. Anne says, have you ever painted in real life with oils and acrylics? Never painted with oils. I've just never had the budget for it. The budget both being monetarily and space. You need a space budget if you are going to paint in oils. Not a very good bedroom medium, unfortunately. Or just, I never just had a studio for it. Yeah. I never could convince my roommates or anything to, be on board. But yeah, I painted a ton with acrylics. I started traditional, I was an illustrator before I was a concept artist, so I've made like hundreds of paintings in acrylics and stuff. It's pretty cool. If you scroll to the bottom of my Instagram, you can see some old paintings. Let's see. Ryan's in the chat. Love you, Ryan. You're a good dude. Northern Lemon says, so like enough structure to be believable and not feel like a cheat, but vague enough that you can have creative freedom and also don't have to spend 200 hours constructing it. Yeah, exactly. Plus, you want to have some ambiguity for there to be surprise and kind of interest and intrigue. I've been rewatching my childhood anime Bleach recently, and I think they do a good job of kind of having more of like a loose system of power where, things that come up, they'll surprise you and go, oh my gosh, that's possible. And they won't necessarily feel very restrictive, but they won't also feel like so outlandish because there's no kind of rigid structure per se, Aki says, oh, thank you. And yeah, I'm betting you'll figure out which medium fits your stories best as you make them. Yeah, it's just in time you kind of figure it out. Seth says, man, I want to play the Sky Pirates game. Dude, me too. Oh, it's going to be so good if it ever gets made, man. If it ever gets made. Crossing fingers. Lax says, ventilation is key unless you like the smell of turpentine entering your lungs. Yeah, exactly. I just never had the setup for it, for the ventilation and the space and everything like that. Seth says having the right space for it is definitely big. Yeah, for sure. Ryan says only love for the homies. Dude, so true. Connor says, with a magic system flavored around wind/breeze, it would be interesting to see trinkets or weapons or other things centered around woodwinds, a small warrior with a giant bagpipe. Oh, that could be cool. That could be cool for sure. Interesting ideas. Yeah. I was thinking with this one, it would make sense. If I did like this one was kind of like more of like maybe they have some wind power, some kind of elemental association with like the wind or night. And then I was thinking with the other one, this kid, like he's definitely more along the lines of like just kind of like raw power, explosive energy, agility. I can see him sort of like both kind of dodging and kind of escaping strikes, and then also like out of nowhere just like breaking down a brick wall, kind of like Spider-Man vibe. So I'm imagining that these different people with these different like I think someone in the chat said animal patrons, which I love that. People with the different animal patrons have like different acuities or skill sets or something. I'm assuming that's the direction I'm going in with this. Oh, nice. Some good jams in the chat for sure. Sunny says, I also love stupid abilities being used in a way that makes them actually powerful and vice versa. I think One Piece has this kind of vibe a lot. Oh, absolutely. The creativity's crazy. Painting without turpentine. This guy's going hard mode with oils. Nice. Yeah, because I've always had space constraints in my life, I've very much like a watercolor artist when I do traditional, because watercolor just fits in your pocket, man. I love watercolor. It's so fun. I'm working on a series of watercolors that are more centered around like my spiritual beliefs and all that stuff, and it's fun kind of going back to an older style that I was working in the past, when I was younger, and focusing more on illustration these days, like for like my personal stuff. All right. Yeah, this one's feeling pretty cool. I like the pose, I like the vibe. Yeah, vibe's feeling pretty darn cool if you ask me. Let's see. I think we need some more clarity around the wings. We don't really have good lines for the feathers on the wings. You can tell when I was working this a while ago that I was very, let's say, hesitant to invest the time into figuring out the feather layerings for the wings. It's always such a, I mean, you shouldn't say it's such a pain because it's just like a pattern that you can work off of, and you can always figure it out. But the complexity on its face can sometimes be a little bit intimidating, even for someone with as much practice as myself. We're always learning something new, man. Always learning something new. Oh yeah, we're talking about line art very briefly. Let's very very quickly kind of go over this because I think it's worth doing. So when you're drawing with lines, and this is take this or leave it, right? But this is what's helped me improve my lines the most. Is that if you have some kind of thing, something with form, right? Where we'll draw like a little ball with some indications of form. Maybe it kind of goes down into some other shape and whatever it is. We're drawing a little bit of a strange kind of form here. When you're drawing something with form, when you're interpreting this into a line art asset, let's say, the first thing that you're doing is you're closing the shape. So you're drawing the outline of the object, let's say. So if I draw the outline of this object, this isn't necessarily the actual object itself. We're just drawing the outline of what we can see from the object. So another good example of this is if you're drawing a face from portrait view. And you have the outline of the face. This is the outline of the forms that you can see that are kind of like the separation between this entire shape and whatever is behind or in the other space, like whatever's in the background. But if we turn this head 3/4, all of a sudden, we don't really have that same structure. And in fact, we have a completely new set of lines, right? So, but we're talking about edges first. So the edge here, the outline or the edge of what we can see. That's one line. So when you're doing line art, be very, very clear about what is just the outline of an object and what is like actual form information. Because the next thing that we draw with lines are we draw shapes, right? So when I say shapes, I don't just mean shape as in like a peel or anything like that. I mean like literal, we're just drawing a shape. Or I'll say shape slash symbol. We'll use that. So another thing we do with lines is we do shapes slash symbols. So what this means is that we are reducing complexity down to a very primal read. So an example of this is if you have an eyeball is a spherical shape that has an eyelid, right? Has a tear duct, has like a second kind of layer around it. It has eyelashes above and below. It has an eyelid. And all of these are kind of round forms that have, you know, crevices and details and all of that stuff. The actual iris of the eye, you know, is dark and there's reflections and all of that stuff. And you have all these little details in the eye, these different areas. So, you know, even this is a simplification, obviously, but we're showing a lot of detail here, let's say. So this is what an eye is. But what we'll accept in its stead is this. A lot of the time we'll accept this, right? So there are areas of high contrast in the eye that we accept as like an acceptable symbol. So part of the reason why we're so okay with simplifying eyes is because there's such clear value blocking. So for instance, because of the eyelashes, the eyelids are very, very high contrast. Like even for me, like I'll show my face cam and I'll like look. So like my eyelashes make it so that my eyes are quite, you know, the outlines of my eyes are very clear. So when we then look at the symbol or the shape of the eye, we're just kind of very accepting of this, let's say. So this is okay. But this is, at the end of the day, a symbol representing something very complex. So again, let's run through what we've done so far. We've looked at outline or edge of an object. We've looked at how when the form turns, that edge is different. We're seeing a different edge against the background. And even for the nose, that's technically, it's like an edge against another shape. Like you're showing that, you know, there's dimensionality to those elements. And we also went through the idea of symbols. This is also true for the mouth. So for instance, if there's like a really big value change, we'll also accept that as an acceptable symbol kind of definer. So one example of this is the mouth. So we accept a line to represent the mouth, probably because every time we close our mouth, you see a black line there. The reason there's a black line is because it's an apex of two curves. So your lips are meeting, and right in the center here is the apex of two curves, right? Because then it goes to your mouth, and obviously you have your teeth here. Because it's like the apex of two curves touching, and they're so round, the amount of light that can get in here is so limited that this becomes black. Like it's because there's no light can reach that crevice, truly. So because of that, you get a black line. So again, because of that area of high contrast, we will permit the simplification of that into just a symbol. It's the same with the ear, right? With the ear, we have the edge, the outline of the ear, and these lines in between are very clearly defined, usually because of high contrast, where there's darkness behind. This area is usually casting a big shadow. This is casting a big shadow. So you have those areas there where you'll boil it down into a symbol, right? Another thing that we do with line is we show or depict areas that are described with light. So we're doing some kind of interpretation of light with the line. This is where it gets a little bit dicey, right? because this is where a lot of the whole style thing comes into play. Where if I kind of draw, you know, a line going across the face, another line down, you're kind of giving form information that they have like kind of a jaw dimple and a very defined cheekbone, but you're using a line to describe a kind of a hyper representation of just curves of the face. So you're kind of going a little bit beyond just edge or symbol, and you're kind of you're dramatizing certain elements of light and shadow, let's say. So another example of this would be like, for instance, under the nose. Like if you have like a nose shape and you have the bulb of the nose, like something very popular right now when drawing noses, and for good reason, because it makes it correct, is you have the nose shape, you have the nostrils, but it's not enough. So we add another line to kind of show you the delineation between light and shadow. So like as light turns to shadow, we'll delineate with that line, and that kind of gives it a lot of form. So that's one way that we use line to describe light in a way. And that can come in many different shapes and forms. If you're using hatching as a tool, you're also using lines to describe form through light and all of that stuff. But that's where it gets a little bit more open to interpretation, much more based on style, and it strays away from just hard and fast rules. So when you're doing line art, just remember that you're always designing with three elements. You're showing the edge, you're showing symbols that represent something very complex, usually using, you know, a form of high contrast representation, and you are designing with light. So you're using line to represent elements of light, and that can come in many different shapes and many different techniques. You know, when people kind of do the pen and ink stuff, usually they're referring to like this, where they're like, this is your hatching design, we're using these lines to do hatching, you know, and actually we're going to use some cross hatching, and we're going to follow the form with the cross hatching, and it's going to give this effect, and you kind of build up all these different forms and everything. But then that becomes just rendering. Basically, you're just rendering. But if you're just doing line art, that's kind of what you're doing, you know? You're doing outline or edge, you're doing shape or symbol, and you're doing form with light using a line or lines to represent those things. Another example of that is like if you do the eye and you do like the line here, you're like dramatizing a wrinkle. You know, you're kind of dramatizing that change of light and shadow where you have that line going across, and it's like a very intense symbol. So that's a quick crash course on approaching or understanding line art. I hope that made sense. And this is what kind of helped me level up when I was focusing on line. Cool. Back to the drawing. Or let's catch up with chat really quick before we get back to the drawing. Let's see here. Oh no, it says my connection's bad. I hope you guys are able to hear me here. All right, I think my connection's still okay. I hope it's still okay. All right. Connor Merchant says the art reminds him of Sam Keith. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look it up. I don't think I know that artist by name. Audio good, video lagged. Okay, yeah, sorry about the video. Glad the audio worked. Thanks for letting me know. Figure drawing. Sonny says wings are a fix and post type thing. Yeah, exactly. Seth says, do you have any tips for pitching comic ideas at events like Comic-Con and how to talk to publishers? Yeah, just show them your work. The biggest thing that's going to get you any opportunities in comics is having something done. That's the feedback I got a lot when I was there. Was they were like, this is amazing. We want to see a finished chapter. When you have a finished chapter, let us know, because they want to know that you can follow through. And they're right to be skeptical, because, you know, for me, I have trouble following through with things like, especially a comic, man, dude, it's brutal finishing a comic. It's so brutal. You know, you really get out of that. You get disillusioned really quick, and it becomes monotonous very fast. So, you know, it's resolution is huge. Showing that you finished something is huge. But just show them your work. Show them your work. The work speaks for itself typically. And just be nice. Be nice. Be like, hey, can I show you some stuff? Do you want to see some stuff? You know, I'll show you quickly. Show them a few pages. You know, nothing too crazy. Have it ready on your iPad or like an actual booklet. Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. Aki says, colored pencils are my jam. I need the precision in order for my brain to be happy. I understand, man. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, yeah. Sorry for the drop in connection, guys. Spectrum Wi-Fi, New York City, man. Oh, good God. Don't even get me started. I mean, it's been good so far. Let's be grateful for what we have so far. And we'll also be a little bit complainy, I guess. If you pay for a service, it should work. Yeah. Yeah, Spectrum Internet and streaming is oftentimes a top. It's a topic that comes up a lot with modern day James. We always come up. It always comes up when we talk. All right. Yeah, did that line art stuff make sense, guys? Like I'm trying to wonder if I should actually do some not art tutorials, but like videos on concepts that I think are maybe a little bit misunderstood. Or like covering some ideas that are very foundational that get skipped every time. Like I haven't really heard anyone talk about that stuff with line art. I don't know if that was helpful or handy. Also complained about how slow couriers were back when he was still olden time James. Yeah, so true, bro. So true. Okay, cool. Line art video. All right. Maybe we'll do a line art video, guys. I have one that I'm slowly working on for shape design because shape design is like my biggest enemy, dude. People ask about shape design, it's my biggest enemy. The misconceptions around shape design just drive me crazy. And they keep getting reinforced by all the people make all these videos about shape design and they're just reinforcing all of this, in my opinion, bad information. It's really frustrating. Because then I got to deal with it in my classes, you know? I got to deal with it. All right. We're phoning it in a little bit with these wings, which we shouldn't do, right? Yeah, we shouldn't phone it in. All right. All right. Let's do it for real. Let's do it for real. Ugh. It's good to catch yourself when you know you're phoning it in, man. Bilge says, hello, have a good stream. Hey, thanks, Bilge. Appreciate that, Bilge. Glax says, I don't know if it's a temperament thing, but I cannot with line art. I think better with big shape, blots, and then refining them after. Dude, that's so fine. That's so fine. Line art, the only reason line art is like, it's just so efficient. Line art is very efficient. I think also, you know, when it comes to line art, there's a kind of like a graphic element that you just can't get with any other medium. Like I would definitely look up Alphonse Mucha, who was like an Art Nouveau master back in the day. And if you look up Alphonse Mucha, Mucha, if you just look up Mucha art, it'll come up. But if you look at Alphonse Mucha, he does this thing where he paints but also uses line. And it's like just really, really gorgeous examples of how graphic line can just completely, you know, help a piece transcend into just a masterwork. So like I think that, you know, learning where line art is good is just good to know, but it's by no means necessary. But it's very efficient for clear communication. It's just so efficient, man. Nothing is as efficient as line art. It's just so efficient when it comes to like hard clarity. Sunny says, "Your biggest enemy? In what way?" Oh, with shape design. Just because like shape is my primary mode of communication. I love shape. Shape is the most important thing in design for me. I think about it a lot. I've got a lot of like philosophical ideas about shape design and shape and all of that stuff. So for me, I'm like very, very intense about it. And a lot of the vocabulary or modern discourse around shape design is so like, uh, dude, to sound elitist, let's use an elitist term. It's very pedestrian and reductive. And I think that it actually prevents understanding. I think words like shape design, saying that, repeating that all the time, I think it actually makes it harder to learn shape personally. That's my personal belief, by the way. So don't at me. You can at me. You feel actually at me. I dare you. At me, bro. Don't actually do that though. I'm just joking, bro. I'm not joking. I'm just joking. I'm joking. I'm not joking. Yeah, I think learning how to design with shape is one of the most important things when you want to be like if you want to attain mastery in art. But it's they make it real hard with all this jargon, man. They make it really hard. Makes understanding really hard. You become limited to a very very like you become limited to examples. You don't have understanding. Seth says the recycled YouTube art content. Yeah, man. Oh my god. If I see one more video, oh goodness gracious. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. People like a lot of new people, they're not going to go watch all of like Ahmed Elduri's old videos, It's just like he hasn't uploaded in a while and it's kind of like who's going to go back and look. So the new content, it gets views. People see it even if it's just the same thing over and over and over. So it's like it's art information going to people, but if it's like super reductive and limited, it's like very frustrating. Go eat that frog. Hell yeah. Alphonse, my goat. So true. He's amazing. I got to see some of his work in a museum exhibit. Oh, lucky. That's fantastic. I got to see some of the original litho posters here in New York a number of years ago. It's changed my life, man. Sunny said, is it like the big, medium, small kind of thing that people repeat, but only some explain in detail? Dude, even that is like so, uh, it's like, it can be helpful to know about it. Like, oh, by the way, if you have clear balance between the elements of your piece, its legibility will be improved. And legibility is important, especially in design. And it also has inherent implications for appeal, having good balance. And but saying big, medium, small, it's like it just puts your brain in a mode that is very hard to escape, let's say. In my opinion, I just have to keep affirming this. It's my opinion, and I need to organize my thoughts better and make an actual video on it so I can actually explain what I feel about it without just being like a hater. Sunny says, I see. So you want to teach us how to fish? Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much my entire vibe. Is I just want people to have enough understanding to explore the jungle on their own. You know, if that makes sense. So some of these forms are incongruent with each other. Like if we flip canvas, like certain things are gonna not work. Like with the face, like certain forms are actually not that bad. Actually not that bad. All right, I thought it was worse, but it's not that bad. But yeah, that's exactly right. I want to teach you how to fish. Enough of this giving a man a fish vibe. For me, really what I want to grant people is freedom. That's like all of my courses and everything that I do is always geared towards giving people autonomy and freedom over the arts, man. That's like the most important thing for me. I don't want anyone to feel limited. There's always a solution, always a way to figure it out, always a way to progress. Big, medium, small is like only one factor of design. People consider it as an end, as an end all be all. Yeah, it's like it's part of it's it's part of a larger ethos of thinking, but it kind of, because you put big, medium, small so big in the forefront, everything else gets disregarded, you know? It's like you see one star of the constellation and that becomes the whole thing, but really it's part of a larger ethos of logic and thinking that you need if you want to properly even implement the idea of like big, medium, small, let's say. Um Gahul vibes for the bird. Dude, that movie ruled, man. That movie was sick. By the way, do you have a concrete schedule for streams? Would be great to tag along while drawing. Man, right now, no live stream schedule. My schedule's been kind of crazy, and I've been kind of half in, half out with the whole streaming teaching thing versus freelance, whatever industry stuff. So it's hard for me, you know, to balance. But um, I'm going more these days. I'm just going all in with the stream and with the classes and stuff, guys. Like it's just, I think it's my calling. So I'm just going for it. Just going for it. Connor says, I would love to see a video on your artistic philosophies and also hot art takes. Oh man, you know, actually, that might actually be the meta for me. I might do some art hot. That's a good idea. Art hot takes. Art hot takes with Gabriel Quinn. Just some random guy telling you what he thinks. Hey, maybe. Maybe. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a fundamentals hot takes because that is another one for me where I just like, oh man, the discourse around fundamentals. The urgency to learn the fundamentals outshines any any kind of understandable benefit from learning the fundamentals. So people just are stuck in a paralysis of I gotta learn the fundamentals, but they don't even know what it's going to grant them. They don't understand what it's gonna do for them. All they understand is that they need to learn them. Ridiculous. Sunny says, definitely agree that it's good to keep in mind that the wording that is used because it really makes you think about it in a certain way. Also, maybe don't give us fish, but that owl deserves a little snack. Yeah. Anatomy? Give me my Michelin men. So true. Let's give this owl a little fish. We can give him a little fish. Why not? Now he's got a snack. Happy? Satisfied? He's got a snack now. Um, yeah, even anatomy, dude. Anatomy is like, uh, that one, you know, anatomy was really hard for me to learn. I'm very resistant to just raw information based learning and memorization. I think it's just so not interesting. But when I when I came at anatomy from the point of view of, okay, this is a system of logic and movement that I can understand. And there's a lot of specifics, but the broad ideas, if I understand them, that will help me integrate the specifics in a better way. So even learning, like from anatomy, even learning the idea that a muscle is just connecting to bone, like basically it's just connecting 2 points of a bone structure together, and you've got the muscle fibers like the fascia, and then you have the tendons, which connects muscle to bone, and then you have ligaments, which connect bone to bone. When you understand just that, and that the body is essentially a rigid system that is being pulled from multiple directions with these fibrous systems, then you can kind of start to understand, oh, that's why this muscle is there. It's pulling this motion. Oh, that's why that muscle is there. It's pulling that motion. Also, the joint system. The joint system is goated. If you're going to learn any anatomy, learn the human joint system. That's priority number one. Number one priority is learn the joint system, which is so easy, by the way. Not hard, so easy. Anyway. Says fish? Fish World reference? So true. I was going to say the fish looks sad, but I don't think most people would enjoy being food. Yeah, the fish is sad, unfortunately. Lax says one of the biggest things I learned is yes, fundamentals help, but they're proven to work, but you need to do projects. Yeah, I mean, it's like, man, it's just, it's people are always going to speak from their priority. They're going to speak from their point of view of what's important. And you got to understand that no matter who you're listening to, even me. Let's go face cam. We're going face cam, guys. We're going face cam mode. All right. You know what? Headphones off. Headphones off. Face cam mode. Listen. Whenever someone's talking to you about something, you got to understand that they're coming from their point of view of what they think is important. So for me, what I think is important is appeal, narrative, shape. Those are stuff that I really deeply care about a lot. I think it's super important. But if you talk to like an academic draftsman who's going to be doing like manuals for, I don't know, like aircraft carrier stuff, that's art, that's illustration. They don't care about appeal or like a sense of shape or flow. They do care about narrative. They care that you understand the sequence of certain things happening. That's a priority for them. But for them, clarity, accuracy, so important. So what are they going to do? They're going to do drawing drills that are way more intense than what you're doing, specifically in regards to accuracy, right? Learning to communicate complex things, specific things in a very specific way. That's their priority. If you look at like a portrait painter, they're not necessarily focusing on like shape appeal. They're trying to accurately represent their subject on the canvas. That's like their number one priority. It's super important. So people have their biases always. They're going to have their biases forever. It's just like how people work. If you get advice from someone on the internet, they're going to tell you what they think is the most important thing. What you don't want to do is discover some kind of opposition to a prior narrative you've heard and just immediately adopt it. Like even for me, I'm critiquing some of these ideas and I'm critiquing some of these, ways of thinking, but you shouldn't just immediately accept what I say and go, oh, a critique of a prior structure. This means that this must be right because the critique has valid points, which means the whole of what this guy says is probably true. It's like, you don't know that. You don't know that. You don't know. So all of that to say, you got to be careful when you're learning art and receiving information from all of these sources, especially YouTube. You have to be so careful, and you really, really have to build a strong foundation of understanding within yourself that, listen, there are 1,000 roads to get to the same end point. Some are longer than others. Some are more direct. Sometimes you don't know you want to end up at a certain end point, so you just got to go somewhere, some direction to start. That's important. Don't be afraid of taking longer to get somewhere. Just keep going and, try to be smart about it. But ultimately, everyone feels that they're right. Everyone feels that they have the best way or they've got the way that's most important. Just know that for me, when I'm giving you guys information, it's coming from a place that's directed and built on my priorities for what I think is important. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to attain the highest level of mastery over art that I can, which kind of bridges multiple disciplines of I want to be an amazing comic artist, I want to be an amazing painter, I want to be an amazing illustrator, I want to be a good communicator, team leader, I want to be a great project manager. Like, so for me, my goals are very broad. So for you, if you want to go on that path of like trying to attain mastery across multiple disciplines and really just become like a highly capable artist, then a lot of what I say might be very useful for you. But if you have a much more narrow focus, then, you know, take everything I say with a grain of salt, regardless, obviously. But like, seriously, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Okay. Rant over. Done. Let's hop back in and keep going with with the art stuff here. Headphones back on, baby. Yeah, we did lock in. We locked in for real. Getting real. Lock in chat. That's funny. Serious mode. Put stylus down. Yeah, true. Observe and find your own way. So true. The human psych temple of God. So true. Connor, dude, I love reading out the whole name. It's my favorite. My favorite. Connor Merchant says, art is subjective. Technique can only be judged and placed within the context of the artist's mission. So true. Great way to summarize everything I just said. I think it's always good to keep your mind open to new and different views, but also know your core. That's essential, baby. That's so true. So true. All right. For an art stream, we really haven't gotten that much art done. I'm going to be honest, guys. We've just kind of been talking and hanging out. But, you know, that's kind of what this stream is turning into. It's kind of just me sort of working on something while I just kind of answer questions and talk. Okay, actually, that's not true. I did a bunch of breakdowns and demos and stuff. So we made some headway. We're productive. Maybe we're not, like, finishing this illustration productive, but we're productive. I think. I hope. What do you guys think? Has this been good? You tell me. Very good. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Let's go. Hell yeah. Ryan says, can't wait to dig into some art after a long day of work. Brother, that's it. You've got it. You know. Figure Drawing says, craft is what we are, is quoting Ed Catmull here, the GOAT. Craft is what we are expected to know. Art is the unexpected use of our craft. Ooh, what a based quote from Ed Catmull. He's the Pixar guy, right? Ed Catmull? I believe he is. Connor says, this has been awesome. Love your art philosophy and demo time. Also, big old bird with snack. So true. You are very entertaining. Hell yeah. That's my primary goal. Entertainment. Entertainment over substance. You know what? Facecam. We're doing it again. We're out here. We're being entertaining. Facecam over. Done. Jaden said, no way, I caught a Gabriel Z. Quinn live stream, actually live. Hey, nice, nice, let's go. Lock in. So funny. That's really funny. Oh, man. Sorry, guys. I scammed you there out of another bit. So funny, dude. Oh, dude, we're just biffing it with these wings. All right, chat, we're doing it. We're going to employ reference. I know. Shameful. Disgusting. How could he? How could he look at examples of wings? This guy. What a poser. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is a great reference. Am I going to show you? Hell no. I'm not using reference. You're using reference. Reference is based, by the way. Always use reference, guys. Reference is like essential. Oh, this is so easy. Why was I even struggling with this? Nice. All right, so it curves up from the shoulder, so I don't even think we see this down here. I think this whole structure is actually a little bit off. We'll have to adjust this to be more like this. I have to bring it in, actually. Only thing is I don't want to lose the flow of the piece. Does that ruin the flow? No, not really. This is fine. Maybe a little bit more like that. Yeah, there we go. There we go, baby. Let's just cut this whole section here. Ooh. All right, wait, what's the pattern of overlap? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. Nice. Retreat, retreat. Sonny says, also unrelated, but have you seen the trailer for the new Sony Goat basketball movie? It looks super fun. I did see the trailer. The thumbnail for the trailer looks like dog water, bro. It looks so bad, the thumbnail, but the actual trailer, the art, it looks sick. I mean, it looks like a Sony movie, right? So it's like a sick Sony movie, which is cool. Gabriel using reference? Unsubscribed. Oh, man. Salamander said, what's up? What did I miss? Why so serious? Oh, no, we're not serious. We're just joking around here. Figure Drawing says, on the subject of birds, it is eye-opening to see, for example, a bald eagle in person. They're huge, dude. Birds are just bigger than you think in general. When they're up close, they're never really close to you, you know? Connor says, I'm a geek for world building, so now I'm just visualizing the giant trees this bird would call home. Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Gigantor. Speaking of basketball, the first slam dunk is wow. Anime from 2023. I think it's on Netflix. Oh man, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen, you know, I don't really watch new anime, bro. I like some of the old stuff though. I have been watching the new season of Bleach. I have been watching that, but that's different. That's different, dude. It's different because I don't want to be caught in a hypocrisy. That's why it's different. Guys, should I make a TikTok? I think the answer is no, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What would I do on TikTok? What would I even do? That's the question I ask myself, man. Do I really want to be on that? Do I really want to be on there like that? I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, damn, you guys are going crazy in the chat. Mia says there was a hawk that was diving to protect its nest in my neighborhood, terrifying. They're massive. That's so cool and so terrifying. Uros Radinovic says, "Hey Gabriel, is it Radinovich? Radinovich? Uros Radinovic. I'm assuming. Hey Gabriel, really appreciate your streams. Would love some advice. Do you have some tips for making a strong and potent world atmosphere with very little focus on characters and no dialogue?" Oh, dude, of course. Absolutely. I'll answer that as soon as I get caught up with the chat, but we'll circle back to that. Yeah, man, crows are big. I got chased one time. That's crazy. Sonny says, yeah, mentioning the huge trees, I imagine this world is like a megaflora to the max with habitats blown up like to scale. Oh, dude, absolutely 100%. You see, you're starting to enter my mind. You're starting to see it like I see it. Ryan says, rewatching Samurai Champloo right now, mostly because I love the music. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Samurai Champloo is the jam. I'm gonna rewatch Bebop soon. I know that. So there's a TikTok hater. That's so funny. It's extra management. Yeah, if you don't have an answer to that, then yeah, dude, I just don't think it's worth it, the TikTok thing. Short form content hater in general. Yeah, dude, it's just so bad for the brain, man. As a TikTok user, you could watch Indonesian kids aura farming on boats. Pretty cool. That's really funny. Connor Marchant says, if you do, you could just post clips from streams and stuff. It could be a good way to get new traction, but it's TikTok. Yeah, man. Also, like, dude, that audience, bro, it's spooky. I feel like the TikTok audience is spooky. I had a friend who like started posting stuff on TikTok, and they just got like bombed. Like they just got invaded by preteens trying to learn art and just like being haters. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, that was freaky. But I don't even know, man. Who knows? Ryan says, I feel so glad I've mostly avoided short form content thus far. Yeah, that's the jam. You gotta just avoid it. Just don't ever click on any of it. Poor attention already. I'd be so cooked. Bro, you would be cooked. You'd be absolutely cooked. All right, let's get back to Uros's question here. Uros Radinovic. Tips on making strong and potent world-building atmosphere with very little focus on characters and dialogue. So you want to lean on expectations, like preconceived expectations of your audience. You really want to use what people already know in order to induct them into your world. So just for the sake of it being here, let's look at this painting we were working on before. So if we're looking at this painting here, there are kind of some instant expectations of what's going on. So number one is that there's a sense of kind of wonder and openness, right? There's a sense of strong atmosphere of like, wow, like we are both nowhere and somewhere. We're in an unknown, undescribed world because like there's just clouds everywhere. It's very kind of obscured. So there's this sense of like weird claustrophobia, but also you're in the openness of the sky. So you have this like weird duality of being really locked in, but also being really open in this kind of cool, strange way. One thing that we've also included here is a sense of motion. So not just with the ship, but mostly actually with the birds. So because the birds are coming towards the viewer and kind of flying around, there is a sense of like motion here of travel. So we have motifs of kind of, there's maybe this kind of searching, adventure, prowling, all of that stuff. Like there's these kind of deeper, weird vibes going on here. One thing that is, you know, very front and center with this piece in particular is very moody. You know, there's this darkness here. There's a sense of drama and darkness, you know, which is one element I loved so much from Disney's Atlantis, that sense of darkness and moodiness where you're in this unknown, and the sense of scale is really powerful. And there's just all this weird stuff going on. So instantly we have a lot of expectations that the viewer would have when looking at a project like this. Just kind of instantly, there's a lot of expectations. So in that way, what we've done here is with no dialogue or characters, told the viewer a lot about the vibe of this world and what's going on. Um, Later on for this project, we're going to do a pretty crazy battle scene, which we're starting to map out here in crazy 3-point perspective. It's just scribbles right now, but it's going to be an airship being attacked by all these little gliders and like little buzzards flying around, and we're going to have a cool sense of dynamism and action. We're probably, if I'm honest here, we're probably going to Dutch this even more than it already is. We're probably going to Dutch this so we get a sense of like real dynamism and craziness, probably this way or something like that, to kind of add a sense of like, whoa, man, what's going on, you know? So we have that pushed angle of the composition, this kind of like downward, again, this very like downward sinking feeling of this depth, you know, you're in the sky, so falling is bad. You know, you want that to be very front and center when you're doing a project like this where there's stuff in the air. This is for like my Sky Pirates IP, by the way. And this is all without kind of like a lot of focus on character and dialogue. I mean, there's a guy here, but he's just here to kind of communicate the idea that he's going to go attack this ship. You know, he's going to look like a scary, you know, bloodthirsty sky pirate. So he's going after the ship. So like when you're working on creating a sense of like depth and strong atmosphere and strong, you really are trying to focus on the implications. So you're using the languages of storytelling and visual narrative such that you can set up audience expectations successfully and either use those expectations or subvert them to your liking. That's what I would say if you're thinking or you're kind of worried about your project not feeling so in depth without the characters. Because like for this project, I have characters. I'm working on a lot of characters. Like here's a few of them that I'm working on still, you know, taking my time with these guys. But images like this can be very, very successful at communicating these kinds of things. Also, like, you know, having shots where it's like the characters are mostly silhouette, like that's very powerful too. So yeah, I think that's one thing that you can consider for your world building project. It doesn't have to be all about the characters. The reason why characters are so efficient is because of empathy. Empathy is like a great way to have people buy into your story. They empathize with your characters. It also allows for a vessel of growth so that through the narrative of the characters, the audience can grow and learn something. That's part of the function of story. So if you're doing world building, remember that like if it's part of a story, the purpose of a story is to like have people learn something they didn't know before. Characters are a very, very powerful way to communicate story. Not the only way, but a very, very powerful way. So just remember that, I would say. Connor says, I genuinely love the bright colors of The Son of No One. It oozes with the aura of older comics or that Bone graphic novels. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like a real passion project for me. This is something I'm like very careful when I work on. So that's why I'm like really taking my time with it and not rushing and not going too crazy or anything. Ryan says, I mean this in the best way, but it feels like you give the main character from Atlantis vibes, Gabriel. Oh, what a win. Milo core. Hell yeah. Yeah. Honestly, you know, I was born too early for whatever is going to come next, but I was born too late for Tumblr, man. You know, I never hit my aura peak to do well on Tumblr, unfortunately. What a shame. What a shame. All right. Sunny says those scribbles getting me so hyped. What the heck? Yeah, dude. Honestly, the power of drawing and sketching is like just like, you can't be understated. Also enthusiasm, you know. That's why like storyboards are so effective when you're trying to pitch story or coming up with stories. Storyboards are like so important. And like, losing the raw energy of the sketch is like the most detrimental thing you can do to a composition or your project. If you lose that raw feeling that your sketch has, it's like everything doesn't matter if you lose that energy. Uro says, thank you, really useful advice. Also got my name right, haha, pretty good pronunciation. Let's go! Yes! Whenever I get a name right, I get so excited. Anne says, how do you combat impatience in art? Great question. What a goated question. Let's get into it. Connor says, I love when artists aren't afraid to use hard blacks in art. It has its time and place, and of course, but it eats up always. Oh, dude, heavy blacks. If you guys don't know the artist Gigi Cavanago, you got to look up Gigi Cavanago right now. I'm going to put their name in the chat. Dude, this guy, I've been a fan of his for like a decade now, bro. This guy is a goated comic artist. He's my biggest inspiration for comic art right now. He's like my biggest influence, I think. And he's really nice. He was really nice enough to talk with me for a little bit and stuff online and everything. He's just the goat, bro. He's like my guy. He also art directed one of the shorts from Love, Death, Robots. One of the only good ones, man. Sometimes they make good ones. Okay, back to the question. How do you combat impatience with art? All right, well, let's run it back, guys. Let's run this back. Face cam. Let's go. We're getting serious. So what we want to, let's lean back a little bit. Let's get comfy. Put my feet up. We're just chatting. One thing that you want to keep in mind is that art is like anything else, in that you can take what you've learned from your life in other areas and use that knowledge for your progress in art way more than you think you can. So the example I'm going to use, headphones off, the example I'm going to use right now is cooking, right? So cooking is a big challenge when you're first learning, because you got to go to the store, you don't know what ingredients to get. It takes a long time to pick out all the ingredients, find everything you need. You get to the front of the counter and, oh my God, I can't believe it costs this much. All these spices, all these ingredients, like this is so expensive. What the heck? And you get home and you get your cutting board out and you're chopping and you're slow because you suck. You don't know how to chop your food because you suck. You don't know how to hold a knife. Maybe you cut yourself. That adds another 20 minutes to your cooking process. So, okay, you're chopping your veggies or your ingredients badly. You're prepping badly, poorly, and you put everything in the pot, or whatever you're doing. You heat up the pan, you make it too hot, so the oil doesn't do what you want it to do, or the sauce doesn't do what you want it to do. And, you put the rice in too early or too late, or you put the toast in too early or too late or whatever it is. And, you're adding things to the pan at the wrong time and all of that stuff. You're adding the seasoning, you're adding too little, you're adding too much. You just don't know what you're doing. And it's taking forever. It feels like your food is like not cooking well. You're not 100% sure when it's fully done. You just don't know. So then at the end of it, you have this result where it took forever. It was so expensive. It was like the time investment, the effort, the amount that it taxed your brain was so much. So then you go, man, this sucks. I'm never going to do this again. Little do you know, you're a fool, number one, because the next time you do it, it's going to take half the time. You already know what ingredients you're getting, right? You already know how much it's going to cost. So you're not, taxed by that mentally. So that's not so bad. But so it's already not so bad. When you sit down to chop, you've got a better idea of what you're doing. So you chop a little bit more efficiently. You've got bowls now, or you put the mise en place or whatever it's called. And you put stuff in the bowls, and you've got your pan out, you've got the heat on, and now like, oh, it was too hot last time. Let's turn it down a little bit. And you don't put the rice on too early because last time you learned that lesson. So you put stuff in the pan, and you're not thinking about it as much. It's taking less time. You're not thinking about it as much. And you kind of find yourself almost like drifting into another thought that you're having. You're not focused on the food or cooking. You're just kind of like you while you're cooking, right? And then by the end of it, you have a better result. It's much more put together. It's spiced correctly. It's cooked to the right temperature. And you kind of go, okay, that wasn't as bad, but it still takes a long time, to do. And it's a lot of effort. And it's true. Cooking is effort, right? Now, let's pretend for a moment that you're my girlfriend, who is the fastest chef I have ever seen in my life. She can go from like no idea of what to cook from scratch. She can just make anything in like 30 minutes. I don't know how she does it. She's so quick. She chops things so fast. She seasons things. She cooks just by, she doesn't follow a recipe. She just knows how to do it all. She knows how to like combine and emulsify things, and she knows how to saute things. And I'm amazed when I watch her cook. I'm like, how does she know all this? She's like, well, you can't caramelize this onion like that because of this. I'm like, how do you know that? And it's just because she's been doing it forever. She's been doing it for so long, right? So can you still feel impatience when you're that good at it? Maybe, but actually not really. So when you're at that level of cooking, you're just you're like in the flow, you're just going for it, right? It's awesome. It's just kind of fantastic. You're just kind of cooking, you're in your gym, and you're not worried about the food. You're not stressed, and you're not impatient that it's not doing what you want it to do fast enough, because it's just taking the time that it takes. So if we parallel this with art, first we have to acknowledge art is harder than cooking, in my opinion. I think that art is one of the most challenging things you can ever learn. So that process that we spoke about earlier of, learning to cook, and the first time it takes forever and you do it badly and it's hard, it takes a lot more effort than it should, and you're stressed out and the end result sucks. The rate of improvement from that time to like not sucking is like literally years. It takes a long time before you stop sucking at art and you can actually start making stuff that looks good, let alone really good. It takes a long time. So you've already spent so much of your time in that journey from the start to now. So remember how long things took you in the original time when you were just learning art. Remember how long that took you, and compare that to now. Compare that to your skills now and what you're able to do now. The time is like more than cut in half. It's quartered. It's an eighths. It's like, it's no joke, it's like you've really cut it down. You can do things so much faster than you could before. So the impatience that you're feeling is as temporary as it was originally, in that what you're working on now, the challenge, the struggle, the amount of time it takes will shrink as you continue to expand both your knowledge base, your skill set, and your process. So then you'll arrive at a point where when you approach like a major project or a major illustration, let's say, or something that takes a lot of time, you're not going in expecting it to be easier than it's going to be. You have the experience and the knowledge base to know, all right, if I'm going to really paint this, it's going to take me like 3 days of painting. Or if I'm really going to make this good, I got to actually spend a full day doing compositions and figuring out what the best composition is. I have to write notes and reflect and look and be practical. I can't just run with my first sketch that's kind of sloppy and hope that it looks good in the end. So the impatience that you're feeling, a lot of it can be attributed to the fact that you're just not where you want to be with your skills yet. And that's okay. You will get there. It will happen. So feeling the impatience is not bad at all. The negative side of the impatience is if it affects you so much and it affects your decision making to the point where you avoid learning and you avoid practicing the things that are hard, but practicing the things that you actually want to learn. One thing I've learned a lot from working with a ton of students. I've worked with students all over the world now. It's like amazing. One thing I've learned a ton working with students is that the things people avoid, there's a lot of art discourse around like, you don't need to learn everything, right? But people sever themselves from their heart's desire. What I mean by that is that people at a certain point say, this is too hard. I'm just going to become a line art guy. That's kind of what I did when I was younger. I loved painting when I was younger. And then at a certain point I was like, man, this painting thing, it's just taking too long. Like, I think I'm just going to focus on line art. And I just got really good at line art because it was way easier than learning how to paint. But years later, almost a decade later, I found myself in a position where I wanted to paint. And all of my disdain for like rendering and all of that stuff, I was like, oh, rendering's so boring, painting's so this, and blah, 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 blah. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be like a rendering guy. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm all about shape and design and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, I found myself in this position where I actually did want to learn how to paint. I wanted to learn how to paint. It's what attracted me to art when I was younger, looking at all the old Star Wars concept art from the original trilogies, looking at, all the amazing art from Magic the Gathering. These things, they inspired me. All the concept art from Guild Wars 2, and that's all painting. I wanted to be able to do that, but it was so challenging. I separated myself from it because of the impatience. So now let's circle back again. Let's kind of like circle back to where we're at currently. That thing in your heart that you want to learn that's really frustrating and challenging, just keep trying. Just keep trying. You will get there. You will get good. At the very least, you'll learn what not to do. And by narrowing down your focus, you're going to get better in the future about not needing to learn things the hard way. You'll get better at learning things the easy way or the more direct way. So how do you deal with impatience in art? Just remember that where you're at with your skills is temporary. The frustrations you feel are temporary. They're not going to continue in the same way if you really devote yourself to the craft and into improving your work and your art. So I think that pretty much ties everything I wanted to say up. I'm trying to think if I left anything out, but that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, the impatience is temporary. You'll get better. And you won't feel as impatient because you'll have appropriate expectations. You'll know what it takes to do like a major piece or something like that. But you only get that knowledge through experience and trying. So just keep trying, keep doing it, and you'll keep getting better. It's kind of a really cool thing about art, which is the guarantee that if you try really hard and you really want to learn, you'll get better. It's kind of miraculous. There are certain things in life that you can't do. Like you're never going to be an NBA player because you just don't have the height, unfortunately. But with art, you can attain a level of mastery that very, very few people can. So go for it. All right, let's hop back in and keep drawing, I suppose. All right. Let's see what you guys said in the chat here. We're so back. Art is the only thing I'm good at. Says Aki. Aki says art is the only thing I'm good at and continue to improve on. And because I spent so long getting to this point, it's hard. It's hard to be bad at something new. And it feels like I'm going to be bad at it for ages. That's hilarious. Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. They kind of go all in with art and feel very restricted or, all that stuff. Uro says 50% for art, 50% art for fun, 50% trying to improve. Kind of hard when it becomes work, but until then, it kind of stops burnout. That's a pretty decent mentality, I think. There's a way, it's hard. There's a way to have it be 100% art for fun, and that's if you're able to be fully present with what you're doing. If you're able to be fully present with what you're doing and not dissociate from like a distaste of what you're doing, which comes from a place of like pride and frustration and, upset or something. But if you're able to be fully self-accepting of your flaws, then that 50% for work can actually be 100% like for fun along with your personal work too. But that's like a very like enlightenment nirvana core. You got to go talk to Steven Zapata for that one, unfortunately. Sorry, Steven Zapata. My bad. My bad, Steven. My bad. Someone said, quote, "Your improvement lies in what you're avoiding," or something. Yeah, true. That's a great quote. Which hit because sometimes I find myself only studying what I can directly understand and what I have an impact on, and what has an impact on my art. Yeah. You want to be very open and connected. Ryan said, "Great locking, everyone. Good hustle." Yeah, so true. Anne says, "OMG, thanks. I feel like impatience and overwhelm goes hand in hand. I avoid grand projects because it intimidates me, but once I start, I enjoy it so much. It's really a mental blockage. It's not real." Dude, the whole "it's not real" thing, that is so important to remember. It's so important to remember. We are constantly fighting our neural pathways. So neurobiology, to my understanding, is the pathways in your brain grow stronger through like calcification, like literal calcium, strengthening connections in neural pathways in your brain through repetition. So if you're constantly worrying and going to a place of panic, that connection, it's like a flow chart. You skip 100 steps and end up at a conclusion that maybe you never even wanted to be in. And it's because of the efficiency of your brain. So what you've repeated during your life, it's going to really affect you. So if you have that sense of overwhelm and freak out, and if your reaction to something big is like, oh no, rather than, all right, let's figure it out, rewiring your brain is a really hard, but it's doable. It just takes conscious effort, repetition, and like being okay with going a little slow, like being okay with just like making your way, tortoise core. You'll become the hare in the future, but right now you're tortoise core. Maybe. Yeah, you got this, Anne. Sunny says, it's like not adding bay leaves in the soup. It does make a difference in the flavor, even if you can't immediately notice. So true. So real. Lack says Steven's about to mention my Goblin King. Heard he's having a kid. Oh, dude, big congrats to Steven. I want to bring him like a pie or something, or like a banana bread loaf. He's out in Queens, so I could go do it. Connor Merchant says the dialogue from this stream has been great. Oh, dude, I'm so glad. Yeah, you guys have been really good with the questions too. I really appreciate the questions. Tortoise Core needs to be on a sweatshirt. Yeah. Oh man, is that going to be the first merch that we do? Is that going to be our first merch ever? Tortoise Core. What up, Vert? Welcome to the stream. We've been going for about 2 hours now. Let's see how long I can last before I decide I want to do something else. Well, listen, we've made some pretty good progress with this actually. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look at where we're at. So I think the wing is a lot better now. Still not like 100% where I want it to be. I think I want to be a little bit more gestural with this segmentation in the middle here. But yeah, the dialogue's been great. Honestly, I'm back at the stream with a bit of a new philosophy. Like before when I was streaming, it was very much very reserved and very I think very safe. Like I didn't want to overextend or say anything I would regret, or I didn't want to, say anything like risky or something like that, or be too like confident or intense. But I'm coming back to the stream with a different mentality where I really care about you guys, and I really care about people preserving the nobility of the craft of art in their hearts and their minds. So whatever I say is going to reflect that urgency that I feel. So that's my mentality coming back to the stream. So if you guys notice a tonal shift as things go forward, I'm just taking it a little bit more seriously, and and I'm just being a little bit more forthcoming with my opinions, I think, than I was before. This is a great chance to very briefly plug the November class. I am doing a world building with costume design class in November of 2025. Here's the little window where you can see the little class thing. We'll scroll down. It's 4 weeks long, where we're focusing on story, coherence, shape design, structure, material, laying form on the body, research, historical influence, world building from scratch, designing a bulletproof world building process, having fun, and getting better at drawing. So those are the main topics we're covering over the 4 weeks. There's going to be a big world building project at the end of the last week that everyone's going to participate on. I've tried to keep the cost of this one way down for the 4 weeks, so only $199 for the standard price. We have an early bird discount for 8 more spots. And we have feedback spots if you're looking for feedback, and a mentorship option if you want something more long-term. But it's going to be a really good one, guys. If you want a real hand holding for the world building mindset process, all of that stuff, I want to give you guys all of my information, everything that I know, all of my processes, all of that stuff. So definitely check it out. The link is in the description. I'll also put the link in the chat too, so you guys can see for yourself, read it, check it out, drop it here. All right, plug over. Thank you guys for listening to the plug for the course. Also, for everyone who asked about the dragon design bootcamp that happened just recently, I think I'm going to bring it back early next year. So you can expect me to revive it early next year, I think. Okay, so bam, bam, bam. Sounds like a noble cause. Hell yeah, dude. Let's go. Mercury in retrograde. People are adjusting the way they communicate. Whoa. Guys, the stars control me. Let's go. Didn't know I was controlled by the stars. Hell yeah. Sorry, actually, controlled by the movement of the planets. Correction. Correction. Dude. Hey, fun fact, when Mercury's in retrograde, the barometric pressure of the Earth is different. That's a fact. All right. Aki says, it's so complicated to make clothes practical, cool, pretty, fit the character's personality at the same time. Well, well, what have I told you? It's not so challenging, and you can learn how in my class this November. It's gonna be so sick, man. The dragon design one was so good. It was so fun, and man, people made some amazing work. It was so cool. Yeah, it was just really, really spectacular. So this one's gonna be even more bombastic. For me with the classes, I always approach it from a perspective of joy and excitement, you know, hype. I feel like that's the best way to learn, through like real just hype and excitement. Sometimes the brush smoothing that Procreate has is like nice because it sort of kind of adds a nice sense of flow or stability to some of your lines, but sometimes I find myself really fighting it. Oh, so fancy. Yeah, exactly. So fancy. Yeah, any of you viewers gonna come to Lightbox this year? Last year it was really fun meeting you guys when I was tabling. This year, unfortunately, I'm not tabling. Maybe next year, most likely the year after. I'm gonna try and table again. Mia says, I think so. Dude, nice. Hype. Haha, that's okay if you missed it last year. No worries. It was so cool, man, getting to meet some of the viewers in person. That was really fun. Yeah, I'll be walking around, so come say hi if you guys see me at Lightbox. I am just as extroverted in person, and I'm always happy to talk to people and say what's up. I might be in a hurry, but I'll always say hi. So definitely come say hi. Speaking of Steven Zapata was there. I was talking to him the first time I got recognized by somebody at Lightbox. It was really funny. What a chiller. Hmm. Maybe we want some like cool overlap. I feel like that always makes a design really feel more dynamic. Which I think I even had in the rough sketch. Yeah, this adds a lot of energy. All right, well, we can keep streaming. I mean, we've got time to kill. I think I have like 3.5 hours before the love of my life returns. So I could just keep do like an extra long stream, I guess. But I don't know. Who knows? Says I probably can't make it to this one, sadly. Oh, dude, yeah, no, you definitely don't have to go to everyone. That's for sure. Sonny says too far to swim. My bad. Yeah, dude, it's really hard. If you're not in the States, it's really hard to go to Lightbox. Anne says, do you have any interests outside of art? Oh, dude, absolutely I do. So many. I'll talk about them momentarily. Aki says, I took an art commission for the first time in years, and I'm really excited about it. Feels like I can finally do something to contribute to society again. I understand. That's awesome. Really excited for you. I hope it goes well. Lax says it's 4:30 a.m. here. I'm just waiting for the lady to wake up. Ah, nice, nice. Hell yeah. Yeah, I have tons of interests outside of art. One of them, for a while, I actually had a really, really big interest in fashion. Like I was really, really into fashion for a while. That kind of quickly sort of dwindled, though. I'm much more simple, I suppose. But yeah, interests. I play a lot of guitar. I like guitar a lot. I like what else? What else? What else? Well, one thing is I just care deeply about my friends a lot, so I spend a lot of time talking with my friends and making sure they're okay, and like talking through ideas and stuff. Like I definitely find myself being sort of like the friend group therapist a lot. A lot of the times unsolicited, but they forgive me for all of my unsolicited advice, I guess. Um, my other interests, definitely, I think I study a lot of history and a lot of philosophy. I think that really empowers both my artwork and just my character as a human being, and would highly recommend being very, very heavy in your pursuit of knowledge on history and philosophy for sure. Like legit philosophy, not like doomer philosophy. Um, Connor Marchant says, so when you create this character, what was the first spark with it? Did the bird slash animal companion come first? I think the animal did come first. I think that the animal came first, and through the gesture of the animal, the person came around. So I can show you sort of like the thinking around that for me. But yeah, I also have a lot of like really intense or really impactful in my life, like spiritual commitments that I have in my life. I'm a Baha'i, so I'm very committed to community service. So like I volunteer with middle schoolers and I help with literacy, and I really, am focused on being of service in every way that I can, which is part of the initial thing with the stream, is kind of like that urge to just like be of service and just give, to some degree. Um, yeah, so with this design, I was focused a lot on, I think like this looking up from down position, and this kind of like back position. You can see we've got this overall arch of flow and energy here, and even though it's kind of like rooted in the ground here, and the leg kind of comes out and over, all of those shapes kind of supported then having a contrasting, instead of having another arched figure here, having a contrasting concave shape and flow versus a convex shape and flow here, where things are pushed out and then looking down rather than pushed down and looking up. So I think the character came after the bird. And what I like about the contrast here is that the bird is kind of like spooky and like strange, but the character is very assertive and focused and mysterious. So you've got like a nice contrast there, which I thought worked well when they're fitting well together. Sometimes it's nice to have like a one-to-one sort of like, they're the same personality, they're the same vibe. Sometimes that works, but having some contrast is oftentimes helpful for this kind of dynamic, in my opinion. So the bird definitely came first for this, and it was very much like shape based. Because for me, like the narrative truth of a lot of shapes is it does like a lot of the writing stuff for you. Like if you sat down with a pencil and started writing, you can get pretty far in terms of describing a lot and coming up with a lot of ideas or like writing things out, but you're kind of limited maybe to what you already know, or you're kind of limited to a certain set of thinking. And but if you go in with shapes and you just start perceiving like what the shapes are giving you in terms of inherent meaning, a lot of the time you're able to create connections and characters that are very authentic and like true, but they're coming from a place of yeah. So you like they're very authentic and true in a way that sidesteps a lot of the need to write things out, and you're more just sort of in the subconscious process of writing. Like you're still designing narrative, but it's much more subconscious. And like what I'll say is it's very flowchart based. I guess we're doing a little sneak peek of what I'm talking about in my November course, but it's very flowchart based where you have like if this, then this, and this would be the outcome. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of idea is like you have your brain is doing a instant logic reasoning so that you can just like move forward with the drawing very intuitively and effectively and efficiently. That's like a lot of my process is optimizing for intuition. So conscious process, conscious design and narrative is important, especially when you're critiquing, analyzing, adjusting. It's very important. But a lot of the times when designing, I like to go with the just raw narrative that's coming out as I'm drawing and kind of running with that. For me, like I rely a lot on the knowledge that I've accumulated over, gosh, like, decade and a half of just like heavy focus on not a decade and a half. What am I talking about? A decade. Yeah. Yeah, a decade. Not a decade and a half. Yeah, like a decade of just like really heavy focus on art and story. So I rely a lot on that knowledge that I've built up over that period of time to be able to move through ideas in a very fluid and organic way. Um, we've got another question. Sunny says, "Could you enlighten me about your mentorship? Of what your mentorship entails?" Yeah, absolutely. So when I mentor somebody, we focus primarily on what's most important for them. So if they want to build a body of work for a portfolio, we can focus on that. And I've helped a number of people do that. What can happen in that process of building a portfolio is you can realize that certain technical skills aren't there that we really want to be there. So a lot of the time the mentorship can shift into a technical mentorship where I'm helping you specifically with specific art fundamentals where you're actually going to be supporting the portfolio work that you're doing in the future with these fundamentals. So that's been very helpful for people who thought they were at a certain point, but actually weren't necessarily where they wanted to be, which is frustrating, but it's better than moving forward on a basis of ignorance and thinking you're someplace that you're not. So that can sometimes come up in the mentorship, which has been very useful for people. Another thing that I do is I do a much more chilled, like monthly mentorship where I look at everything you've done for the month, usually for about 2 hours or so. And I'll look at everything you've done and we'll figure out, were you as productive as you wanted to be? What were the barriers? What will help for next time? And again, just like do a little critique of the work, answer technical questions, answer larger questions. So it's very much like accompaniment. Like I will accompany you on this step of your art journey to get you to the next level, to get you to that next spot, to where you feel comfortable moving forward, on your own, basically. That's the most important thing. The most important thing for me and my mentees is I want you to, in as few sessions as possible, stop needing mentorship from me. That's like my goal. And I think from a lot of past mentees, that mentality and that process has actually resulted in really strong growth. And usually in a matter of months, they stop coming back for mentorship because they've made significant gains. It's time for them to push on their own for a while before they need further consultation. So that's what a mentorship with me looks like. It looks like accompaniment, both technical, mindset, process based, to develop your body of work, develop your idea, or resolve and solve like really, really detrimental narrative or technical mistakes in your work. So that's what it looks like to receive mentorship from myself. That's the jam. The best feedback I've gotten from people, and I've gotten this a number of times, is they say, you've saved me years of confusion. And that's my goal. My goal is that by working with me, I save you years of needing to figure things out the hard way and just kind of like grant you easy access to the necessary information and processes and skills that are going to unlock your artistic abilities and the work that you want to do. Ryan said, this guy Gabriel, he's pretty cool. I gotta say, hey, Ryan, you're pretty cool. I gotta say. Aki says, thank you. Also, you're the only art streamer that I find to be properly enjoyable, and I really appreciate it. I bet a ton of practice went into your ability to do such good commentary. Really? No way. I'm the only one who's enjoyable? No way. No way. I don't believe that. Really? That's crazy. Sunny says, got any other animals and human duos you want to make? Yeah, so I got a couple sketches here. One I showed earlier, which I don't actually know if if this is like the vibe. I like it. I like this one a lot. This one I think is like just absolutely goated, dude. I think it's so good. Let's see. Why is there a random? Oh, I see. It was in a separate layer. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, this one I love this design so much. This was really fun. So here's one that maybe I need to take a second pass at. Who knows? And I think I did some previous ones a while ago, didn't I? Oh, look at this guy. He's so funky. This guy rules. I should like finish this drawing. This is a cool sketch. I did this. This was, I think, gonna be, I can't remember what animal this was gonna be. Or maybe he's like holding some kind of spirit thing. Yeah, this is when I was like thinking through the idea. Oh, it was gonna be like a snake or like a dragon thing? I don't remember. Who knows what I was drawing back with these drawings? I don't actually remember. But the ones that I have more concretely sketched out are weird tiger guy. So like tiger warrior. Definitely one I want to check out. And I think I want to do like a a lady with a snake. I think snake ladies are like, I don't know, accurate like story thing. Like lady with snake is just like a perfect narrative. I don't know why, but it just is. Sunny says, and what is the pricing on these magnificent sounding mentorships? They sound really interesting. All right. Well, I'm hesitant to say on stream just because I don't want to start throwing numbers out and all of that stuff. Currently, I'll say this might change in the future if you pursue mentorship from me in the future, but currently my mentorships are $60 an hour. So 60 an hour, which is, in my opinion, extremely competitive compared to other mentorship prices. And you get the real deal, man. I really care about you and I really want you to succeed. It's actually like a character fault of mine is that I care too much. So, yeah, that's the current price is 60 an hour. So I'll do 1 or 2 hour sessions typically. I've had a lot of inquiry recently and emails over the mentorship stuff. So, I don't know if I'll have to put a cap on how many mentees I have. Currently I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, 5 active mentees right now. I don't think I would go above 10 personally, just because I feel like that would be too much. But you never know. Who knows? But yeah, if you're interested in pursuing mentorship, that works. You can also get the bundle with the mentorship with my class. There's a big mentorship thing at the bottom where you can see there's a overkill mentorship slot with a bunch of perks and stuff if you're curious. No pressure, no pressure. No pressure, guys. Mia says, giant puppy and tough man. I love it. Yeah, that's the kind of jam. I love the contrast. Sunny says, OMG, they're the your pet looks like you vibes. Yeah, exactly. Mia says, is this file all one project? So multiple sketches in the file? Yeah, that's true. That's how it is. Yeah, it's a bad habit of mine. I tend to do things all in very similar files, but it's just kind of how I think. I don't know. I go back and forth between drawings a lot, so it's like having multiple files is just frustrating for me sometimes. But yeah, you're right. Connor says, unfortunately, I got to head out. This was such a great stream. So much good info and great conversation. You're awesome. And hashtag tortoise core. Dude, you're awesome. Thanks, Connor, for dropping in, man. Good to see you. Aki says, I mean it. Very few streamers have story and purpose behind their art, which I find to be quite important. And even fewer put such heavy focus on commentary. Commentary is like the whole thing. I mean, for me, what I used to do when I draw, when I used to draw a lot, is I used to listen to university lectures when I drew, and I always wished there was something that was very engaging artistically to watch while I drew, but there wasn't really that much. You got a lot of stuff now though, like Steven Zapata is amazing, and you got some cool folks out there, but other than that, it's all very like kind of like 10-minute video meta on Proco, and it's like, yeah, if I'm gonna watch that, I have to like pay attention, But if you come to my stream, baby, you can just draw and I just say random stuff the whole time. Thanks, but that's really nice. Thank you so much, Aki. Yeah, that means a lot. Mission accomplished. That's my whole goal. Uro says, I wish there was a good drawing app that would work like a sketchbook with pages instead of files. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's kind of how Procreate feels. But I hear ya. Nothing's ever going to be like an actual sketchbook, though. Sunny says, nice. When I get my money up, hopefully you'll have some free slots. I totally agree with not having too many mentees. Yeah. For sure. No, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, I was always too skint for mentorship when I was still a student and still learning. I could never afford it. I always envied the people who could afford it. And when I started freelancing, I started taking mentorships with artists that I trusted and enjoyed. And it just was such a game changer, man. I realized that all the people that were making huge gains around me were people who were like taking a lot of mentorships. And yeah, so when I had a complex around it, like I don't offer mentorships because I never did mentorships and blah blah blah. But then I started doing mentorships, and it really helped me. So I decided if people want to take a mentorship with me, I'll give them the option if they want to. Jaden says, hearing you talk about all the art stuff is such a great experience. It's clear you know what you're talking about. Whenever people tell me they want to maybe join an art course, I recommend yours. Oh, let's go! Let's go! Long time Zapata fan here. Those streams are absolute cinema. Yeah, he's great, man. His character bit is great. I definitely don't go as far as he does with the character bit, but Sunny says the one thing about Procreate that makes me want to crash out is your Apple Pen is on 5% and then dies. Oh man, I haven't. It's weird. I haven't had what's my Apple Pencil at 72%. I don't know. I mean, I have the second generation Apple Pencil, not the new one, but like the the semi new, like the. And by the way, I'm using my iPad Pro from 2018 that I bought with my own money from commissions. That was just awesome. I love this iPad. It's so old though. I'm realizing that it's so old. It's like 7 years old, man. That's crazy. I hate that. I hate that it's 7 years old. I don't like knowing that. Sometimes I think about upgrading, but it still works great, man. They made him too good. They made him too good. But honestly, the barrel roll feature of the new iPads, it's got me looking, you know, it's like the meme with the guy looking at the girl walking by and the other girl's like, It's like that meme where like I'm looking at the new iPad and my my current iPad is like, what the heck? What a trooper of an iPad, so true. Sunny says, yeah, mine is old. I got the 2018 Boomer iPad. Yeah, we have the same one. We have the same one, man. It's true, no cases. That's so true. I also have that problem. What a classic. What a classic. Uro says, wish we had a Procreate equivalent for Android or PC even. Nothing really compares. Yeah. So the reason behind that, the reason why there are so many apps that are optimized for Apple products versus Android specifically, not PC, but Android specifically, is because Apple is so standardized. It's very easy for developers to optimize for a certain number of devices across certain number of hardware. If you try to make an app that works for Android, like an Android tablet or something, it's a lot harder because the devices that people are going to use, the processing power ranges so heavily between all those different devices that these developers can't really optimize for it. So you end up needing to have like either limited features or like a different set of features. And what's so useful about the Apple ecosystem, dare we say it, is that it's a very, very specific scale of power that developers can optimize for so effectively. So you can get apps like Procreate for Apple products, but you're not going to get them for Android products, unfortunately. Um, it's a cool element of the Apple ecosystem because it's like apps like Procreate can exist because of the limitation of hardware and the dominance of the devices across multiple disciplines. Like, iPads just are the tablet that's just that people have, they have iPads. It's like a noun. Um, and so that's pretty good. But it is a problem for people who do not want to be in the world of Apple. It can be very, very frustrating. Yeah. Meow, meow, meow. Mia says, I still have Clip Studio Paint. I love the control and the buttons. I can do Procreate touch gestures. I feel like I don't have control. Ah, yeah. Fair enough. I love the Procreate touch gestures. It's so good. My 11-year-old Samsung tablet worked so well up until last year. Oh, so sad, bro. So sad. What a pain. Yeah, man. It's sad for the boys out here. I gotta say. I gotta say. Yeah, it's the reverse problem for video games because like building a PC is still the preferred method for having a computer. So like if everyone had a Mac, it would be easier for developers to optimize their video games. But because everyone has a PC for games, it's like the adoption is like low. So it's not monetarily worth it for game studios to optimize their games for Mac because the user base is just so small. And Macs don't have a power advantage on PCs, like for instance in tablets. So there's this like funny reverse equivalent for video games where you just have no video games on Mac or like very, very limited video games on Mac, even though if you optimize them for Mac, they run so unbelievably well. The new ARM chips for the Macs, bro, it's just insanely good. It's crazy. and said, "Would you ever plan on doing a horror comic? I always wanted to." You know, this is a bit of like a philosophical tell, but I'm not big on the horror genre just in general. I think that there's enough people who are really into it that I'll leave it to them. For me, like I'm very focused on stories of like hope and triumphing over darkness in a way that's not like um so shocking and like you know, freaky, I guess. But using fear and using is fantastic. Like Harry Potter does that really well. Like Harry Potter's scary, bro. It's like scary. There's some really scary stuff in those movies. So they use fear, but I wouldn't call it horror. So like I approve of using fear, but I think horror is like it's just purposefully going to a zone and a realm that I can't handle, man. It's too intense for me. I just can't handle it. All right. Let's put some values on this bird and we'll maybe call it soon, guys. We'll maybe call it soon. I hate to say it, but we'll maybe call it soon. All right. We're doing it the old-fashioned way. We're flatting the old-fashioned way because it's like meditative and fun. I like it. Aki says it's just a pain to transcribe the games to work on different platforms, to be honest. Dude, it's like really hard. And also, Apple makes it so hard because you have to like pay so much money to them for like the developer kit and all of that stuff. Like they just make it so prohibitive and frustrating. The thing is that Apple's been trying to get more AAA titles optimized for Mac. Like you can play all the Tomb Raider Lara Croft games on Mac, and dude, they run. So I have a Mac, by the way. I'm a Mac user, so when I play them maxed out ultra settings, and it just runs so fine. No drop frames, runs totally fine. I don't even hear the fan kick on. Like these new ARM chips are just nuts. But you know, the Lara Croft games, they're fun, but it's like, you know, what if I want to play Overwatch with the boys? I just can't do it. You know, Blizzard and those guys, they're just not going to optimize for the Mac like that. Especially because you're doing so many updates, so many live updates. It's just so costly. You have to have like an entire separate team to do it, and it's just like so much work, especially for how hard Apple makes it. But what's cool is that a lot of indie games have their titles optimized for Mac. So like my favorite game publisher is Supergiant Games. They just make the best games. And I've been jamming the heck out of Hades 2, man. So much fun. Would you guys ever watch a video game stream with me? Would you guys ever do that? You know, I was thinking about it somewhat recently. I was like, man, what if I streamed games? What if I actually did that? I wonder how that would go. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah? Hell yeah. Yeah, the privacy security, dude, so true. Oh, dude, see you, Seth. Much love to you, brother. Mia says Supergiant is fantastic. Dude, they're just best in class, honestly, for what they do. Like I've got some games that I want to develop that are not like they're inspired by because of like the kind of the story mode, gameplay flow, and all of that stuff. Um, but yeah, yeah, you guys would watch me stream games. All right, maybe not on this channel, but maybe I'll have to start a gamer channel. Who knows? Who knows, guys? Who knows what's in the future? Sunny says, I love your positive whimsy art because even though I love a deep and dark show, sometimes it's nice to just have a lighthearted one that can have a deep and scary theme, but isn't just trauma hamburger. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's very close to my philosophy around art is you want to have range. It's all about range, man. And it's also all about like appropriate scaling. Like if you have like a really whimsical or a really bright um story or show, then the sense of fear can be you can really like you don't need that much to have like a really real sense of peril. I think a good example of that are the Spiderwick, the Spiderwick movie, where there's a sense of whimsy and charm, but there is that sense of like fear and like whoa, even though they're just like little weird troll guys, like there is that sense of fear of like oh man, this is spooky. All right, nice. We didn't talk so much about world building with this character this stream. I think I'm just like allergic to actually embracing the topic that I put in the title. I don't know why. But I do like the direction it's going. I think the kind of darkness and whimsy are really cool. I think for this project, I definitely want to try some comic sequences, like scripting them out and try some cool stuff there. I think that'll have some really interesting results overall. I think it'll be cool. So I definitely want to try some sequences for these characters. Try to think about like moments that really capture the world. Yeah, I think maybe some of the reason why like I was inspired to return back to this project or work on this is I've been seeing a lot of Naruto clips again, and the idea of like the Jinchuriki is so cool. Like you've got this like demon in you. It's kind of sick. You got some like some extra power. It's kind of cool. Kind of a cool idea, not gonna lie. Naruto, pretty cool. Mia says, I love the Spiderwick books. May go back and read it. Are we cooked? Are we back? Are we still going? Oh man. I just lost my connection here. I don't know if you guys can actually hear me anymore. Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Am I back? Okay. Okay. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, cool. Sorry about that, guys. I just connected to my hotspot. The connection just dropped apparently, which is very frustrating. But it happens, baby. It happens. All right. CJ's here. What up, CJ? Ryan says, just realized you're working on Procreate. What in the world? Yeah, man. We're in Procreate today. It's in the title, dude. World building in Procreate? But this is kind of what I was talking about earlier about how when I work in Procreate, I think more in terms of showing the idea in like a really cool drawing or a really cool illustration versus going with a bunch of like rough sketches and stuff like I would typically do in Photoshop. So it does really impact the way that I think about ideas, what medium I'm working in, specifically like software. So software wise, whenever I work in Procreate, I think much more in terms of illustration rather than, you know, the other stuff that I was talking about. Okay. Whoa. Hello. Ooh, these are such cool shapes. I love these shapes. Wow. Okay, nice. All right, let's block in some values here. What base color should we do? Maybe like a deep blue or something? Something like this? That feels right. Maybe we'll go a little bit lighter. Maybe less saturated. It's a little too saturated for me. All right, that's a pretty good base, I think, to work off of. Okay, I'll probably do 2 separate areas for the character versus the, actually, first we'll merge these. All right. That's a big resolution though. Yeah, I always work high res. I can't help it. Very limiting with the layers, but who needs layers, bro? Just do it perfect. CJ says about to start by the new course. So excited. Oh, dude, hell yeah. Heck yeah, CJ. I'll be happy to see your work progress, my friend. Oh, dude. Yeah, this new course is so you, dude. It's so you. Speaking of small things being spooky, the silence had me shaking in my boots. Hell yeah. Mia said, I was just about to ask how you choose your colors. So, color, it's again one of those fundamentals that seems like this esoteric thing that you just don't really know, or it's hard to understand, or there's all this weird stuff you don't know. A lot of it is very reason based rather than like jargon based. So, you'll hear a lot of terms like complementary colors, primary, secondary, tertiary colors, and all of that stuff. Really, when you're choosing colors, a lot of it depends on the scenario that your drawing exists in. I know that's kind of an abstract concept, but I'll kind of explain it in greater detail, which is that if you're doing a drawing that is like static and in a void, let's say, which honestly this drawing is kind of in a void, then the colors that you're choosing are not really dependent as much on atmosphere and like lighting conventions, or like yeah, it's not necessarily subjected to let me start over here. Also, we've been going for like 3 hours. I'm starting to wane a little bit, my focus, not gonna lie. So choosing colors for me is very much a reaction to the narrative needs of the piece, I'll say. So first we'll just say that. So for this piece, since I'm going for this like raven-esque owl bird idea, I'm instantly thinking of these kind of deeper tones, these kind of more violet tones, lavender tones to start. There are narrative associations that the audience will inevitably make with certain colors. For instance, like orange is a very, very bright color. It's very uncommon for you to see orange, let's say, like on a very evil character. It's like, you know, it won't necessarily come up as often, and you have to be very specific with how you do it. So for me, when I want like a very alive character that is super bright and I want them to immediately be associated with like bright energy and intensity, I will immediately jump to the color orange to add that just immediate sense of whimsy and aliveness, I'll say. And the same is true for other colors. Like, for instance, like a very unnatural green. So a green that's skewing towards the neon is very like uncommon in nature, let's say. So you can use that quote unnatural green to kind of have like a very hazardous, strange association with the character. So there are those kinds of color identities. And then there are also other color identities that is more responding to, I guess, more technical things. Like, for instance, certain colors will respond very well to certain lighting scenarios. For instance, like reds don't necessarily show up that well when you're doing a bunch of like really dark kind of scenes, unless that red is like super crazy bright. Well, actually, that one, I don't know about that one. So what I just said, you can forget what I just said. That one I think was a little bit more, I'm thinking of something very specific in my mind, but it's not actually useful for what I'm saying. But yeah, choosing colors, I mean, the short answer is I'm responding to the needs of the piece. I'll tell you a little bit more instead of my reason for choosing colors. I'll tell you my problem solving for going about colors. One thing that I'm constantly checking is saturation. So a color like blue looks really good across all saturation. So like if you go for more of a gray blue, it looks really nice. If you go for a very saturated blue, it still looks really nice. So blue has really good scaling when it comes to saturation versus a color like red. Red only can really exist in a certain realm of saturation before it just starts becoming like this weird like mauve, strange brown. So as red becomes less saturated, it just stops being red and it becomes like a weird, pale, strange thing. So if I'm going to go for base colors where I want other things to pop with saturation and not compete, I like the color blue. I also like the color green. Green scales with saturation really well as well. So blues and greens go really well, whereas like yellows, oranges, and reds. I mean, yellow does scale with saturation well as you know, in a similar way, in that as you move down saturation with yellow, it still looks like yellow, sort of. But if you go dark with yellow, it stops being yellow. It becomes a brown or an ochre very, very quickly. So yellow actually only really exists in this upper value range. It starts being green if you push it down to gray. It stops being yellow. It just feels like green. So yellow only really exists in a high, bright value range, whereas blue can exist in multiple, well, there's so many variations of blue also. We have a very limited vocabulary for blue. A lot of things are blue in our vocabulary, and the values are goes from very, very bright to very, very dark. So when I'm choosing colors, I'm thinking about those elements too, like what level of saturation can I get out of this piece? How is that going to impact the overall, I don't know, composition, I guess, or the overall feeling of the character? If I want the silhouette to be bombastically striking and intense, I like darkness. Dark, powerful silhouette feels really good. So with this one, going with this kind of dark cloak, going for that deep that deep kind of desaturated blue, almost navy, just feels right. And we can go like a little bit lighter for these parts, I think, as well. Yeah, something like this. So that feels right for the silhouette. And it feels right for the mood of the character too. But dude, color is so hard, bro. Color is like sneaky hard. Honestly, I'm not really good at teaching color because I don't have a lot of experience teaching color. So I would definitely seek counsel in many different from many different sources on color. I think a lot about color temperature. I think color temperature is like the forefront of what I think about. Color temperature and value. Those are the two things I think about with color. Technically. And then everything else has a narrative reason for being, I suppose. Game Lord. Oh my god, Game Lord. What up, dude? Long time no see, man. How's the art progress going, dude? Mia said, yeah, I get the fundamentals, but I feel like I psych myself out. Yeah, just honestly, how I learned color, and I'll be really honest about that, is trial and error. There is no secret that I learned that like unlocked color for me. It's just trial and error. I've made so many pieces with color, like so many. I've experimented so much with color. It would be a miracle if I wasn't, adept at choosing color. But most of it is intuition based, which is hard to explain. It's hard to explain the intuition based stuff, to be honest. But a lot of it has to do with color temperature, hue, saturation, and value, and like those limitations and making the most of those limitations. That's why you see so many color combinations pop up, because it's kind of like at a certain point for certain color setups, you only have so many options, you know? Yeah, yeah. It's Game Lord. He's back. Our favorite German art student. I'm always surprised at how many people are tuning in from Germany. Germany seems to be like for some reason, a hotspot for viewers for me. I got a lot of German viewers, which based, awesome. Let's go. Guten Tag, core or something. So for this one, I'm going to try something where I go for like a very saturated underlayer, and then I push it back a little bit in a couple other areas. Game Lord said, progress has been good. Starting a mentorship with Jay pretty soon. Oh, Jay Seki? That's awesome. That guy rules. Yeah, really nice guy. A lot of knowledge. He's great. Hell yeah. All right, that looks kind of sick. I'm gonna go over it a little bit with another brush here. Yeah, hair is something I'm comfortable going a little bit more high detail on, even when I'm doing like a simple piece. All right, this is feeling pretty sick, I gotta say. So with the skin, I actually want to keep it pretty ethereal. I don't think I want to be like too like realistic. So then he said, I went to get my cat. What's been happening? Dude, not much. Talking about color a little bit. Focusing in. Yeah, I can feel my attention start to wane a little bit, guys. I think I might have to call it pretty soon. We've been going for like 3 hours. But I'm having so much fun. So I'm just setting up a few kind of clear value blocks just to add kind of clarity on some of the shapes of the face. So even at a distance, certain things are clear. I'll do another one for the mouth. Yeah, for the pants, I don't know what to do for the pants. Maybe something like a little lighter than this, but nothing too crazy. I think I'll just select this. Be easier. That looks pretty good. I like it. I like it. That looks pretty sick. Let's go. That looks pretty dope. I gotta say, I like it. I like it. A very productive 3 hours. So true. So true. Lack says art just takes time. Unless you're on a deadline, then you do by God everything you can. Yeah, it's true. So true, man. Those deadlines are no joke. I sometimes miss the daily deadline of like when I was contracting more concept artwork. It's just like you just have a day. You got to get it done. Submit it every day. Something new every single day. Something about it that was nice. Just that rhythm. All right. We got our cool character here. Then we got to do our bird. We can definitely borrow a lot of the tones. Tones from the character's costume kind of make the bird a little more in that palette. Working with a limited palette is very, very powerful, I will say. So because the claws are claws, we're going to add little specular highlights to kind of tell you that they're shiny and like sharp. Those little specular highlights go a long way. Certainly. All right, now we're just doing a drawing stream at this point. All right, so we'll do a pretty loose process for adding color to this, just because I don't think I have a lot more in me, guys. We gotta wrap this up. I might do another pass to kind of refine certain elements on another stream. How was this? Did we like the Procreate vibe? I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. I will say, you know, using the Cintiq is nice, but it's big. It's nice kind of just drawing on the iPad sometimes. It's kind of cool. Yeah, we've definitely covered a lot of topics today. I really appreciate all the great questions, guys. Doing this process of like just kind of painting certain things in a loose way, it adds such a cool effect. I love how it looks. Just like leaving those gaps in between, and it's such a cool painterly style. I really like it. I've been doing it more and more these days. Super cloud like, so true. So true. Lack says, was super great hanging out with you, dude. Likewise, man. So what's great about working on clipping mask layers and all of this stuff is that you can add a lot of material, but then you can also just kind of like gently remove it. Like I'll just with an airbrush just kind of push it back a little bit. A couple areas, you know? That kind of push and pull. I love that, man. It's one of the really cool elements of digital painting that I like. It's kind of like you can just sort of push and pull things and really experiment. CJ says, I saw some pretty epic clouds today and thought of your last stream. Let's go. Heck yeah. I actually made some progress on that. It's even more cloudy now. Here, I'll show you again briefly. This one. Yeah. It's even more cloud-like. Yeah, this was a really cool piece. I had a lot of fun with this one. All right. I think we'll have to properly finish this one on another stream, guys. I think it's time for me to wrap it up. This has been an absolute pleasure for me to talk with you guys today and stream this cool bird process of taking this, finishing the line art, actually, pushing towards the finish. It was something that was sitting on my iPad for a while that I kept looking at, going, "Oh man, it'd be so cool to finish that. It'd be so cool to finish that," but just never found the time or never made the time. So it's great to hop on stream and just like wrap this up and develop this idea. It's been a ton of fun. You guys have been fantastic. Thanks for the great questions. I sincerely appreciate it. And we made some cool headway. We didn't get 100% finished, but we're pretty darn close, right? Yeah, you guys have asked some really great questions today. Made me think about some things I hadn't thought about before. And yeah, I hope you guys are liking the new direction of the stream. More conversational, more vibes. More art philosophy ideas. And yeah, like I said before, if you guys are interested in world building and want to learn with me hands-on in a hyper intensive process, definitely check out the class, which is going to be just an absolute joy to be a part of, man. It's going to be really fun. A lot of cool stuff going on. And I'll make a proper video for it in the coming days, so expect that. But if you want to snag one of those early bird seats or get your place, definitely check it out. All right, guys. This has been an absolute pleasure. Never a chore. Love you all. Have a fantastic, fantastic day. And I'll see you all next time. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow. All right, guys. See you later. Peace out.